This is the public hearing for the property at 3590 Redicop Road for rezoning. And it is OCP high density residential and currently zoned RU1 single family housing. Some of the key considerations typically in a rezoning are listed here. And some of them include the timing of the proposal. For instance, the OCP does support it, this rezoning, but the OCP is a 20-year plan, so council can consider whether timing is correct at the moment. Also, there are other elements such as consideration of whether the proposal will increase community diversity and inclusion, as well as the public interest. This is the location of the proposal, and it is a 0.17 hectare property. The aerial of the property and the Google Earth rendering where you can see the property as well as the surrounding neighborhood and other amenities such as the rail trail and the park, tennis court. Here's a side image. The proposal is for amending the zone from RU1 single family residential to RM2 low density row housing. The property is within the district's urban containment boundary and within the Woodsdale neighborhood. The applicant has submitted a concept plan proposing 2 3-plexes, which would mean 6 units, and intends to build a mix of 1 to 3-bedroom units for rental housing. The applicant has also submitted a development permit application at this time, which shows further details of the proposal, and this will be brought forward for council's consideration at a later date. This is the concept plan provided by the applicant, showing the access of Redicop Road and the 2 buildings. Some of the off-site considerations are as follows. Given the size of the project and the proposed number of units, traffic has not been flagged as a concern. Redicop Road dead ends 3 properties to the east at the rail trail, and this would mean that there would be no through traffic and a low traffic volume. The development is located in an area with easy access to a number of amenities, including the Wood Lake, Okanagan Rail Trail, Beasley Park, Risewood Regional Park, and the tennis court. As the neighborhood continues to develop, there is increased walkability, and the aim is to lower dependency on vehicles. However, through the DP process, it will be ensured that the minimum parking requirement will be met. And based on the fire department's comments, the internal driveway will be maintained as a no parking zone. Commercial parks, public transit, as well as the town center are within walking distance. At first and second reading, 2 studies were requested: sanitary capacity and water capacity modeling, and these have been completed with favorable outcomes. The sanitary capacity is sufficient to accommodate the development, and the water system capacity is also sufficient to accommodate the proposed development. An additional fire hydrant may be required further east on Redicop Road, and this will be determined with discussion with the fire department. In summary, impacts to water, sewer, and transportation from the proposed rezoning are anticipated to be negligible. Current zoning potential could add new single-family and secondary suites to this market, whereas this rezoning proposal adds new multifamily housing to the market. As a multifamily and rental development, this proposal will diversify the housing stock in line with the housing needs assessment. The proposal is reasonable given council's policies and plans that are in place today. Council, however, has full discretion at the time of rezoning in its interpretation of the OCP and also its timing.
Are you done? Letters received? Any letters received that were with it?
They're included in the package. 4
They're in
letters
the
were
package?
received.
And council, any questions? Councillor Reed?
Mr. Mayor, thanks, Blessy, for the presentation. Ooh, I do not know why it's...
No, she has to turn hers off.
The way to keep... No, that's weird. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Blessy, for the presentation. I just have 3 questions. In the report from Urban Systems, it refers to there are 6 proposed units with a multi-family density of 2 people per unit for a total equivalent of population of 12 persons. But in the presentation, the applicant is building 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. So if they were all 1 bedroom, that would be correct, but he's not. He's building 3, or they are building 3 bedroom units, which would be more than 2 people per unit. So I just wondered, does that change the report, given we're now talking about a higher number of persons than the report is based on? Okay. Could we follow up for the next hearing? That would be great. My second question is the off-site considerations. I walked down there today, and I understand there's on the map, there was a large property at the dead end of the road, and I understand that's now subject to development. Obviously, the Google Earth was done before that. So just that you've got it there. And that's 42 units? Is that the case? Okay.
That was approved previously by council.
Right. I think that kind of information I would like to see on the off-site considerations. Because obviously that is a 42 units going in on that road. I wouldn't have been aware of that unless it had been pointed out to me by one of the residents. So that was useful information. And also, given the rezoning, if we rezone, I understand the number of units is based on site coverage. So it's not necessarily, the applicant has put in a proposal for 6 units, but presumably if we granted the rezoning, he could change that, they could change that to another number of units. What is the maximum number of units that you could place on that site given the RM2 zoning?
We would have to calculate that based on the maximum site coverage of the zone.
Okay.
But in this case, the applicant has submitted a DP also, which is very similar to this concept plan presented, and it is 6 units still.
Okay, and are they 2-story or 3-story? Because in the report, that was an option.
Would have to look further into the development permit.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is regarding the proposal and the suggestion that these would be rental units. I'm wondering, are we talking short-term rentals? Is the one part of the question. And then the other part of the question, is there any ability to limit that to rentals? I mean, person can say that, but may change their mind after. It's the rezoning we're talking about here, correct?
Yes,
So,
there is no way of restricting it only to rental. The applicant is also here, so she may be able to speak to whether it's short-term or long-term rental. It was just stated in the application that it will be rental type.
okay, thank you very much.
Turn it off because Kara told me to. Anybody, applicant want to address council? Sure. Do come ahead and state your name?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Jolene Russo. I am acting as agent for the property owner. I am a planner with both municipal and private sector planning experience, and I reside in Kelowna. And I do have a short little presentation, it's just verbal, that I'd like to share with you, if I may.
Certainly.
It may answer some of your questions here. So I'm going to try to breeze over what perhaps Blessy has already shared with you so that I don't take up too much of your time. But I will tell you that the property is located, as she said, in the Woodsdale neighborhood. And the property owner has selected this property for development for that specific reason because it meets the policies of the recently amended OCP. It is within the urban containment boundary. It is close to existing services and provides amenities such as parks, transit, and stores nearby. I have noted in my presentation that recently the Dale Commons, 3 parcels down to the east from the subject property, was approved for 42 units with a floor area ratio of 0.71. It's currently under construction, not quite finished as far as I understand. An OCP amendment is not required for this proposed rezoning as it does align with the planning objectives of the district. And as I'm sure you're well aware, Lake Country's housing stock is dominated with single unit residential. And there is a high demand both in the OCP as well as the regional growth strategy for an increased variety of housing types and tenors. And that in order to have a healthy community, which meets both social and economic needs, rental housing is pivotal component in that. The site was purchased by the property owner in 2018, and at that time there was a modular home on there, 2 wells and 2 accessory structures. The wells have been decommissioned and the modular home relocated, and the accessory structures will be addressed at time of development approval should council choose to do so. We have completed 3 studies to support the rezoning application, which include a hydrological assessment, a geotechnical investigation, as well as the water and sewer modeling that Blessy spoke to. The hydrological assessment has confirmed, based on the proposed site design, which the rezoning and development permit is consistent, and should council choose to approve both the rezoning and the development permit, that would be set in stone. Changes could not be made to the building footprints, the number of units, or the form and character. For your information, assessment says based on the proposed site design that the site will be suitable to accept a 100-year runoff event, as well as sufficient area on the site to allow for infiltration of captured runoff. The geotechnical investigation does consider the water table of the site and has identified slab on grade as the appropriate foundation approach, as well as removal of existing topsoil, which is very minimal, and replacement with appropriate fill materials, which is 0.3 meters, which will be good quality granular fill. Our request is to rezone to allow for 6-unit townhouse development in 2 structures, which will include full urban services and improvements to Redicop Road. The unit composition will be 2 units of each type. So 2 1-bedroom, 2 2-bedroom, and 2 3-bedroom. Each future unit will have its own outdoor amenity space at the rear of the property, and will also have a common turf area for playing and relaxing, as well as each will have a community garden plot and a common area on the site. 40% of the site is being proposed to be landscaped. And the site has been designed to ensure that the development of the garages and the internal roadway is primarily faced internally in order to allow for a more preferred street front that is in line with the existing conditions of the residential nature of the area. Prior to submitting the application, we did attempt to meet with some of the neighbors to share our development proposal and to hear their thoughts, and a number of them were kind enough to provide me with the time to have a discussion with me. Some of the concerns raised were one individual has a history or experience in land development and had some thoughts on their own site design and would prefer to see land assembly across the road to have a larger development of parcels. There was concern about the presence of renters in the area due to the feeling that renters disregard property maintenance and the potential loss of friendships of children of property owners when children of renters move out of the neighborhood. There was a desire to maintain the status quo on Redicop Road and not see any changes at all. There was concern regarding form and character of the development in relation to the newly developed 3 compact housing lots on the south side of Redicop Road. They wanted assurance that a quality form and character would be seen on the north side of Redicop Road. There were also concerns regarding on-street parking and the loss of on-street parking in front of those property owners' houses. In order to address these concerns, we did reduce the unit count from 7 to 6 units for both improved site design to address neighbor concerns as well as to comply with district directions that were provided to us. We have committed to ensuring a property manager to manage the property maintenance as well as the residents should there be any issues. The site's district parking requirements are being met and exceeded, and we are ensuring quality form and character and landscaping that will add value to the street front. Again, a development permit is required to ensure that we do meet that. Comparatively speaking, the regulations for the RM2 zone that we are requesting, the FAR, allowable FAR, is 0.5, and we are requesting 0.39, so slightly under. As I mentioned, the commons 3 lots down is 0.71. The minimum lot area requirement is 1,000 square meters, and we are at 1,695 square meters. The maximum site coverage is 45%, and we are proposing 43.7%. Required parking stalls, as per the district zoning bylaw, is based on number of bedrooms per unit. So based on what we're proposing, 10 stalls would be required, 1 visitor stall per 7 units, and 2 bicycle stalls. We are proposing 11 stalls, 1 visitor stall, and 4 bicycle stalls. The maximum allowable height for the RM2 zone is 9.5 meters up to 2.5 stories, which is similar to single-family housing on that road. And we are proposing 9.11 meters up to 2.5 stories. Private amenity space is required at 25 meters square per unit for 150 meters square minimum, and we have 154 meters square. So to provide you with a summary, the proposal aligns with policy contained in the recently updated OCP respecting the urban containment boundary, the efficient use of services, and the proximity to amenities and recreation. The OCP says that this is good and both smart planning, and we have taken efforts to ensure that we align with those policy directives. We've also made efforts to engage with the neighbors and amend our development where possible to meet those needs. It provides much needed rental housing in a variety of compositions. It ensures meeting and exceeding parking requirements of the district. It will result in improvements both to that private property and public lands along Redcott Road, whether we are doing the street improvements ourselves or providing cash in lieu. And we are committed to engaging a property manager, as I have said, and committed to providing form and character that is in line with the existing neighborhood. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may
Good,
have.
thank you very much. Any more questions from council? We're good? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
I'll ask if there is anybody in the gallery who wish to comment on this amendment. Come forward.
Mayor and Council, I'm Joy Kozip. We live to the north of this property. One of the problems with this property, it's very boggy land. My brother-in-law lives directly north behind it, and quite often he has a lake in his backyard. I barely have my grade 12, and the geotechs and all of them will probably out-talk me. Another problem I have with this, when I did look at it, there is only 1 visitor parking for 6 units. The street parking, to my knowledge, will be cut down because the other side of that street, they've deleted the ditches. Well, I've been told they're going back in. So the parking is a problem for me. And with new developments, quite often their garages are so small, unless you have an Austin Mini or a smart car, you can't get them in, forcing people out on the street, and you'll end up with what we have on Woodsdale Road and on Bottomwood Lake Road. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And anybody else wish to address council? Come forward.
Oh, sorry, I'm Stephen Clements. Could we just?
Sorry, what was the name?
Stephen Clements. Hi. Could you bring up the proposed lot design, please? Picture. Okay, so I'd also like to comment on the parking piece. So we live across the street and down one of the homes. Recently we purchased our home in 2018. We came from a rental location, a full building, 30 units with only 6 visitor stalls. And again, comments on the parking requirements there. We had 2 people to each rental unit, each person had a car. I appreciate the design on here, but I would like to comment. So you have 3 parking stalls in a row in building A, for example, each unit, I assume 3 cars in line, a tandem park. I struggle to see that as justifiable 3 different parking stalls for 1 unit. Very challenging to, if you have renters, you have roommates, to ask your roommates to move both the cars that are behind in order to move yours out. So I can see this trickling out onto the street and truly potentially causing an issue for the actual renters who would inhabit here, in addition to the residents that surround the property. So I appreciate the comments about it meets the minimum requirements for parking, but I don't think that necessarily means that it should just meet the minimum requirements for parking. So those were comments that we provided to the consultant that we spoke with prior. And I just wanted to echo that that's kind of our biggest concern here. So not just from the residents' perspective, but also as a renter who potentially would live here, speaking from experience, who rented for 6 years prior to owning, that is a challenge, and it's going to be cumbersome for the tenants that would move in. So please, for your consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Anybody online? There is someone online. How do they? She's gone? All right. We have a phone number and we can get a comment, but we have to get it tonight if we terminate. But let's see if there's anybody else in the gallery that wishes to address council.
Your Worship.
Let me see if anybody wants to speak for the first time. And then, anybody? Then do come ahead.
Mayor and Council, I just wanted to say one more thing. That is quite a narrower road. So even if they don't bring the ditches back and people are parking on both sides of that road, that is going to be a nightmare. Plus the development at the end of the road. I was told, I was at the meeting for that development, and they said they are not going to be, they're going to block it off. So the Dale, they won't be able to come in from Redicop, yes, from Redicop Road. But if they're parking on both sides of that road is going to be a nightmare.
Thank you. Councillor Gamble, you had another comment?
Yes, and it was regarding the parking. And I know that the minimum requirements have been met according to our bylaw. But I'm just wondering, we're hearing some comments here. Maybe council could consider increasing that requirement based on the concerns. And one thing I would like to hear from the staff is how much parking is available on the sides of the roads here along Redicop Road.
Your Worship, I think that the Director, Jamie, had a couple of comments to make.
I beg your pardon?
So, Jamie McEwen
Okay.
has a couple of comments.
You're on the phone somewhere or
Yep.
online?
Hi, good evening, Your Worship, members of council and members of the public just attending from upstairs, ensuring physical distancing. So with respect to the issue of short-term rentals, I didn't want to leave council on the hook without an answer in that regard. The short-term vacation rentals, for example, would not be allowed on this property. Council does not allow short-term vacation rentals through the zoning bylaw in the RM2 zone. So that would not be permissible. Now, however, on the issue of long-term rentals, the community has a dramatic shortage of long-term rentals in the community. And in fact, I think this may actually be one of the first purpose-built rental buildings in the community. However, 6 units, still one of the only developments that would be entirely for rental purposes. where we've got some developments that have become rental out of changes in business plans. This one would be with that intent and that purpose. With respect to the parking on the street, I would defer that to my colleagues in engineering with respect to what may be available. However, it is staff's view that we could certainly eliminate that. And when it comes to the issues around the paradigm shift that we have discussed as a group with respect to active transportation and mobility within the community, having rental units close to transit and amenities such as this certainly does pose a lower traffic demand than what you would see in other areas with less amenities.
She's back. Okay, thank you. I have a phone-in comment, if we could hear. State your name.
Corey Glola.
And comment.
Your worship, I believe that Mr. Go is there for an application that is before council at the
It's-
regular meeting.
It's not to do with this application?
No.
This public hearing? Okay, thank you. We'll, if we can get you online, that's a different item on the agenda. So you're not commenting at all on this Redicop Road comment or public hearing? Okay, you'll call back. Anybody else wish to comment from here? Do come forward.
Mayor, Council, Scott Whidden. I live right directly across from this subject property. I've been there 15 years, and I just reiterate, yes, I have a little concern about the parking situation there. Currently, even just to the beside that property, we find a lot of vehicles just on a small single family that overflows the streets. And I actually took a ticket today, I think, because they can't seem to manage the parking there already. And that's just for a single family residence. There must be 5 or 6 vehicles there at a time, or if they have a boat or anything, they're out on the street, and I seen a ticket was issued today. And that's just before we even put in multi-family units. I am pro-development. I am, improving the street. I like that idea. I like all that kind of stuff. But we've lived there for, myself, 15 years, and we've got some new family homes, and it's a really good street, and it seems to be working, and it's improving, and that it works well right now. We've seen since the rail trail opened a lot of more traffic down that street, just by foot traffic. People are out using the rail trail. They're using that street, and so even we have to become more aware as we back out. I've almost bumped into people because they're walking up and down that street. So we have to be aware, and just so the increase of traffic and the people using the trail, and now with the dale at the very end of the street, we're going to see a giant influx that'll probably be up and down that street. And so my concern is now we're going to add some more, and then some of the parking issues and some of the streets in the area really aren't up to snuff. If we had all that maybe organized a bit better and some parking around from the park, when the park overfills, we get parking all the way down onto that street. It all parks down around the big field there, when there's stuff going on at the park there. So it does get a little congested down there, and I think with greater traffic, there's going to be a real need to upgrade the roads and do some proper maintenance down there. We've had drainage problems there for years. It hasn't been properly drained for years. The water used to be ditched and flow down and around and go out, and that hasn't been maintained. Or so there is we comments that the land is swampy. It is. It's because there hasn't been proper drainage there for a long time, or service drainage. So there are some concerns in there that maybe some other things need to be addressed before we start to build up that area. You're right, it is close to people, amenities, and we need that for our community to be able to get to amenities, and walking and all that stuff's great, but we just don't have the sidewalks or any of the other stuff or drainage that I think is going to need to be done first. Good. So that's just my 2 cents today. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Second time of asking? Third time of asking? Hearing none? Then I'll terminate this. Oh, you have? Applicant come forward again? Yeah, you just about got
I
terminated.
Sorry, I thought we were waiting for him. But thank you. One question just to speak to the.
Speak into the
Sorry,
microphone.
just to speak to one of the comments that was made. Could you expand on the size of those parking spaces where you have 3 cars in a row? How deep is that and how wide is that?
I don't have the measurements in front of me, but they all at least meet the minimum parking requirements outlined in the district bylaw, zoning bylaw. Expanding the parking areas will either reduce the road width, which is not possible because you have to accommodate for A, traffic, and B, fire and emergency access. And it would also impact the required amenity space.
So could you get a F-150 on, because we know we have a problem up at the lakes with trucks overhanging the road. So would you be able to get an F-150 truck into those exterior or internal parking spaces, or are they only suitable for a sedan style car?
It is my understanding that in compliance with the district's zoning regulations for parking, those accommodate all vehicles.
All vehicles, okay. And my second question would be to speak to Director McEwen's comment about business plans changing. Just as business plans can change from into a rental housing, presumably there could be a situation where this could change from rental housing. If we're making part of the decision being informed about the social benefit of this development in terms of providing rental stock, what's the likelihood of it changing or could change before build or after build into a for sale retail property?
The property owner has been planning for a number of years now to develop a rental housing development for long-term holding.
Right.
As I had mentioned before, I've been in municipal and private sector planning, and it's more often than not, people who are proposing developments are trying to go against the policies and the grain of what the community wants. And this property owner has put in considerable effort to find a property that meets the directives of the OCP and that provides a quality development that will contribute to the community.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
thank you.
Any other questions?
No, just make a note of parking issues and drainage issues.
Well noted. Thank you. I do have copies of all the studies if anybody is interested in having them.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anybody wish from the gallery to comment on this issue? Second time of asking? Third time of asking? Hearing none, we'll terminate this public hearing. Thank you very much. And get on with a regular council meeting. We'll take a 5-minute comfort break. How's that? Oh.
No. I just wanted to, I think it would be a good comment well made. We are only zoning requirement for visitor parking and so low. Yeah, and then, you got the lake and you go through the household. But at the same time, we recognize the need to, try to use public transit. So to get public transit out here and get people using it, that's another job. So, it's not all simple.
I put my winter face on, right, and I think, okay, if I want to live there.
No, you're absolutely right. You are If you've got 3 cars and they all have to evacuate, get that one that's right at the front house, you're in, you can't do it. Yeah, no, it's something to think about. Yeah, that's right. Or anybody, yeah. Yes. Yes. So the actual urban system survey for the regional plan. 12 and 6, 8, 4, so yeah, 18. So the next step would be 10.
Thanks. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm Rita. Your presentation will be open here. I think I've got it open down there. Yeah, so it's, just have to click the PowerPoint there. When it's your turn, I'll come up here. Do you know, are you familiar with Teams at all? Do you know how to share the screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So if you want to, when it's your time,
Has it been
just
5
click
minutes,
share
sir?
the screen. And yes. And then click the desktop option over here instead of the window. And then then you can go into this and start your slideshow.
So which one is first? Click on the red first, the red button.
I'd go to Teams first,
Teams, yeah.
share the screen,
Desktop.
desktop, and then back to your PowerPoint. Yeah, and if not, I'll be right there, so I can come help. Go ahead.
Where's the rest of the crew? Cara? Bill?
I'm gonna go.
Who's? Did they? Oh, Todd. Cara and Bill? Well, we got a quorum anyway. No. Oh, here she is.
What kind of taxi are you driving? That little yellow one.
All right, yep. I don't know where Bill is, but. All right, call to order the regular council meeting for Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. And first, adoption of the agenda, Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Kozub. Adoption of, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries, thank you. And adoption of the regular council meeting minutes of June 16. Councillor Kozub and Councillor McKenzie, errors or omissions? Hearing none, those in favor? Opposed, motion carried, thank you. No reports. And announcements. Where are we? No announcements. nobody can do anything or go anywhere, so nothing to announce. Lake Country Heritage and Cultural Society annual report from council by Lynn. Thank you very much. You give your name so everybody listening around the country can hear.
I'm Lynn Finelli, the Executive Director for the Lake Country Heritage and Cultural Society. I'll just try and hopefully it'll work. Uh-oh, I'm lost. It's already on?
We'll hire Ryan for our tech too.
Oh, it kicked it out.
Wrong one. There you go.
So it leaves the cameras on the side?
Oh, we'll go to the presentation here. There you go.
Thank you.
Got
Good
it.
evening.
Good evening.
That one stays?
Go on.
That worked. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the Lake Country Heritage and Cultural Society. Mayor Baker and Council, it's a pleasure to be here once again. It's my second time in front of you as the new Executive Director. I've been with the Society now just a year and a half, so everything's still new to me. Still learning about the wonderful community we call home, Lake Country. Really enjoying the history that we have, the commitment by community to preserve that history. And here we go, a little bit about our annual report. Can I just page down? So we've had a fairly strong year at the museum. There's been a few changes. Being new, there's always going to be some kind of changes because we all don't think alike, which is probably a good thing in most cases. We've worked very hard with the board this past year to look at our strategic plan and our strategic planning process. We do have a beautiful hidden gem in our museum, and we're just starting to really tell that story to ensure that the visitor experience understands what we have to offer in Lake Country. The first thing I did when I got here was look at the strategic goals that were set prior to me coming on board by the board of directors. The first one being the diversifying revenue streams. They had been looking at some social enterprises that may assist in finding new funds for the operation of the museum. Since then, we launched a call for proposals last fall, looking at initially partnering with an existing organization for educational day camps. It was very well received. The comments and the conversations we had about educational day camps operating at the museum got everybody quite excited. We did attract the attention of UBCO capstone students to look at a financial proposal or the viability of operating educational day camps at the museum, and they put forward a five-year financial forecast showing that it would be very profitable for us at the current rates of fees for full day camps. The projected plan was looking at approximately $45,000 annual revenue. We will be distributing that plan through Ryan or directly to council in the near future. The next goal that the board of directors had was that they would like to create a marketing communications plan. So we did do that last summer. We finalized it by August. We worked with our summer student to take advantage of some of the new social media platforms. We had started venturing into new areas for marketing, looking for ways to communicate cost effectively. We're just reviewing that plan now, and we will have a new submission by the end of summer with an update after we have tried a lot of the suggestions in that plan for marketing. The bottom line is it does cost money to do marketing, and we are trying to phase in that cost over a time period, 3 to 5 years. Strategic goal number 3 that the museum was had on their plate as something very important to them was looking at our archives, at our collections, and making sure that we got them out to the community. We heightened our education. We preserved them in a better place, a better space. We made sure that the inventory was up to date. That is ongoing. The majority of the work that's done at the museum is by volunteer. And so we do that as we have the volunteers to do so. This year alone, we've attracted close to half a dozen new people to assist us at the museum, and it's brought in a lot of new expertise and a lot of new energy. We also took advantage of UBCO's digitized Okanagan history. So if you have an opportunity, please Google their site. They have now close to 30 organizations such as are on that site, and they are housing thousands. Well, last count I heard, it was just over 100,000 photos of Okanagan, from Okanagan archives. And it's an amazing resource for all of us in the Okanagan. A little bit on the President's report. You all know Dr. Dwayne Thompson. He's again our president for the Heritage Society. I think through his notes that are in front of you, the main scope is to let you know that we are a volunteer organization, that we provide thousands of hours each year to preserve the donations that we receive from our community. We did have Dan Bruce with the organization for over a decade, and Dan did resign this year. He's now fully engulfed in Fintry Estate as executive director as well as curator. So along with our strategic planning and looking at our previous goals prior to me coming on board, we're moving forward with our new 5-year strategic plan. We did work on a new vision statement. Previously, the vision was preserving our past for our future. Now we are presenting our past, illuminating our future. So that was our first step in our strategic planning process, was to try to ensure what our vision was. We then moved on to the mission statement, and at the bottom of the page, you'll see our new mission statement. And it's telling the story of Lake Country's region while providing an opportunity to learn through research, education, and collaboration. So again, we're enhancing what we want to do with our collections and our archives, and that's to get it out to the public. Some of the collections that we did get this year were the Mona Halitsky donation. That was well received by our archivist, Laura Nemi. We also received a selection of school photographs and family photos from the Ellison Community Hall. And again, we took advantage of digitized Okanagan history to get a lot of that up onto their website. So Laura and her crew of volunteers have been working tirelessly to try and get as much as we can accessible to the public. On the side of the collection, many of you, I recognize your faces, have been into the museum and seen what we acquired last year from Mitz Hikishi's dad was one of the original Japanese pioneers that came to Lake Country. He worked his way up and became foreman of Rainbow Ranch, I believe, for the Japanese community. He had 4 sons, and his one son who donated this beautiful collection of Japanese dolls, he now lives in Summerland. He's about 88 years old, but he came into possession of the Girls' Festival. It is a symbolic celebration, which is still happening today. Girls normally get this collection of dolls when they're around 6 years old, and it's to ensure health and happiness and prosperity. There is also a boys festival, but we didn't get that collection. And just on a side note, that collection came to Canada right after World War II, when Canada was at war with Japan. And it was a pen pal relationship built between two young women who reached out and made a connection. So we have lots of collections, we have lots of archives, and so what do we do with it? So we've really upped our game on our exhibits. We've had a wonderful volunteer come forward who has worked tirelessly this past year. Her initial task was steeped in our traditions, and that was to take advantage of our new donation, the Japanese dolls. We partnered with UBCO, some of the students from there put on tea ceremonies. We really engaged the public last summer with the launch of that feature exhibit. We are continuing on with feature exhibits on an annual basis, and you maybe have seen our brand new billboard up on Highway 97 facing north, and it's Fashion Fall Light, which was inspired by Art Walk's Art and Fashion show last year. Again, we have our satellite exhibits. We're looking at a turnover of twice a year for those, which are located here in the building as well as George Eliot. And then we have some permanent exhibits in Oyama Community Center as well as George Eliot Secondary School. So a little bit back to education and public programming. So we're moving forward with educational day camps. We're hoping to have them up and going this fall. There's still a little bit of work to do to make sure that we meet all the COVID-19 restrictions and regulations and processes. But we're looking or hoping to do at least a soft launch this fall because we do need to meet those distancing requirements for COVID. Those educational day camps are going to be full day camps, not early morning or late afternoon after school care, but they're going to be from probably 8 or 9 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. So that'll enhance the daycare or child care spaces within Lake Country, but also provide an opportunity for us to let everybody know, specifically our youth, about the history of Lake Country. A few other things that we did this year. We had a couple speakers. Pam Lang did a presentation on What Bird Might I See Today. Ken Mather, who's a well-known author, talked about Trail North, his new publication. Dwayne Thompson through Laura Nemi did a presentation on the history of Lake Country. I believe he also did a couple of presentations to council as well on the history of Lake Country. Our new book got launched last year, which was Apple Valley. Previous year was All Aboard, about the rail industry. And we're now working on cowboys, a book on cowboys, because that was the initial agriculture product, I guess. As Dwayne puts it, it was a product that could walk to market and could walk to water, and that was a good thing here. We did have the release of Apple Box Bells. So if you haven't seen it yet, please go onto YouTube and search Apple Box Bells. It was a documentary produced by Spotlight Productions out of Vancouver. It was funded by TELUS, and it was released in January. And it's a 16-minute video about our apple orchards and that business sector.
Back in houses.
A few numbers. I know I was here last fall and talked numbers, but our social media has just been growing. We've been very active in trying to drive those numbers. I think one of the biggest wins has been the creation of Lake Country Reflections, and I invite you all to be part of that group on Facebook. We have over 550 people now, and they are having conversations every day about our community. And you can see how much people really are vested into our history and our experience here in Lake Country. Our numbers were very similar to years past at the museum. This year, it's going to look a bit different. We did a lot of outreach as soon as COVID hit, and you'll see that reflected in our next annual report. I'll try and give everybody an update in the fall on how this has impacted us. There was a lot of interaction as listed on the slide that we we did within the community, such as Canada Day, Oyama Fun Day. But of course, all of that this year has changed. Again, just a quick note on our volunteers. I think that the biggest asset we have is our volunteers. They are volunteers that are highly knowledgeable about our community. If you need any information or historic content, we have the people within our organization to assist. So like I said earlier, we are working on a 5-year strategic plan. We've just about finalized our goals in all 10 areas that we function. One of the main actions or activities that we're going to be moving forward with is the educational day camps, and that's going to take a lot of our time. At the end, though, we hope that we've met our mandate of providing more education to our community about our history, and then also providing a revenue stream to help sustain us. The board is still working hard to secure full-time employment, whether that's a mixed or shared position, but they are adamant about moving forward and securing a full-time position. What that allows us to do as a museum is access other additional provincial and federal funding. And we are just not allowed and are hampered because we do not have that requirement met. The other item that we need to strive for is to make sure that what we do is told to our community and abroad. We need to have marketing funds. We need to tell our story. We just can't keep our story in-house any longer. We need to look for those funds to get it out there. A little bit on our financials, if you can read it. It's very similar to years past, not much change. Again, which we reported last year, is that the board did make a commitment to cover the cost overruns for hiring more hours for staffing. They've done that again this year, and we're still operating in the negative and pulling money out of our Arnold investment. There was a bit of a shortfall, higher than we had thought. We work on a cash basis accounting system, so our grant that we received in March should have been paid prior to our year end in January 31st. So the $7,000, we're short an additional $7,521.14, which shouldn't have put us in the red so much at negative 24,000, and some should have been 7,500 less. But that was the cost of hiring and trying to obtain more man hours. And thank you for your support.
No,
Without you, we couldn't be here.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Lynn? Anybody from council? Yeah. Councillor Reid and Councillor Gamble.
So my mic's not working. Thank you very much, Lynn. I just wanted to say thank you for all the work volunteers do. That's a lot of man hours and woman hours going into that. I just wondered, in terms of your outreach, partnering with somebody like Ancestry.ca in terms of getting community records out there. I know they accept records from churches and societies, and it sounds like you have a treasure trove of information out there. It might be worth, on an international scale, I know that this is, with everybody shut indoors with COVID-19, then anything on the web is hot potatoes. So just something to maybe think about if there's an opportunity there. I know they do partnerships. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's very nice to know.
Okay. Councillor Gamble.
Thanks, and I appreciate your presentation. I usually go to the museum several times a year just to check it out. And I must say, I think that it is a really personable type of place, interesting in its small space. It's surprising what you can do. I always like to see interactive type of displays. I don't know if that's the sort of thing that we can get to in time, but I think, for the space we've got, you definitely are representing the community well, and I look forward to seeing that Japanese display. Because my friend that I went to high school with, who was Japanese Canadian, used to get those dolls for special presents. I remember that, so I'd love to see that display. So thanks very much.
Just to talk about our outreach and our interactive. Because of COVID-19, we've really upped our game in the last few months. And right now we have our feature exhibit Fashion Fallout. And what we've done is if you come and visit the museum, you can scan a QR code and it takes you to a game. And then you answer the questions on the game. And then you can become a museum detective.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good evening.
Then we don't give you the badge. or we take pity on you.
No more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And public comment. Anybody wish to address council on some issue of concern or compliment? Second time of asking. Do come forward, state your name.
Sorry, 1 moment. There you go.
Good evening, members of council. I'm Tyler Bartley. I'm the owner and founder of Lifestyles Coffee. Maybe some of you have come into our cafe just up the hill in the same parking lot as Dairy Queen. But we're a fairly new business. We're actually a year old as of July 1st. So we made it our first year, which was always an interesting time. Lots of changes. But I'm up here tonight representing myself because we are in the process of making application to the BC's venture capital program for small businesses. What that program is, it's a program that's set up by the provincial government, which helps assist small businesses attract investors to raise capital for growth. What it offers is a 30% tax credit to accredited investors up to a certain amount. So it's a great initiative for the BC government to help small initiative and innovative companies that are looking to grow into different scales. And as you might think, coffee, how does a cafe kind of grow? We're actually an e-commerce company. So currently we're selling our coffee all over Canada and the United States. We do a lot of business. About 85% of our business is done online. And we have created innovative kind of supplement health food markets coffee that we use functional ingredients in to enhance our coffee to get better value out of your day. And with this, we want to kind of create more of a presence in Lake Country and a bigger operation for our production facility, as well as a farm where we can start cultivating our own input products for our coffees. We infuse our coffees with functional mushrooms, so lion's mane mushrooms, reishi, and chaga, if you're familiar with them. But they're a really popular kind of herbal supplement that's in the market these days, and they go great with a combination of coffee. So in this growth kind of strategy that we have, we're trying to go through the VCC to make our opportunity a little bit more attractive to investors. And we have currently teamed up with Maven Capital, who is a company here in Kelowna, which the owners live here in Lake Country as well. And so we're kind of starting this process off, and part of that is to get a letter of reference from the council and the city in support of that. So I'm here tonight to just kind of let you know exactly what we're doing and see if it would be possible that you guys would mind giving us a letter of reference for part of our application into the VCC program.
Thank you, Ty. Actually, I got an email from another businessman in the community and asked if I would write a letter of support. And I said, well, council would have to have a look at it and see what they're doing. So I thought I was going to get a written.
Yes,
you got it?
I have written. I just didn't know what exactly the COVID policy was with documents.
I
the box
see,
for
yeah.
24 hours or what.
So,
yeah. I have a letter of reference. So we have our lawyer from Pusher Mitchell kind of drafted up. He's the one that's kind of helping us assist us in this program. So I don't know how.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a requirement for the application. It's just something that they look at as a piece of evidence that we're adding value. And part of our program is to be doing a lot more community involvement with our roastery. So we want to do like a lot of roast and learn nights where we can invite members into the shop, and we go through different kind of coffees, as well as we've been talking with like the movie theater gentleman there and doing small private viewings. And we have a cheese and chocolate tasting, espresso tasting event on the 25th for community members. So we're trying to get a lot more community involvement and a lot more into our program.
Sounds good. Thank you. We'll go through the report and get it at
Perfect. Thanks for your time
something I can
tonight.
do. Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Second time of asking? Third time of asking? Nobody. All right, we get on to development. We have our, oh, bless you, you doing everything tonight? My goodness, come on, you're up, bless you. Development application variance permit. All right.
Worship and Council. This is a development variance permit for a side yard setback and a height variance on Cars Landing Road. It's OCP rural residential, and the zoning is rural residential 3. This map shows the location of the 0.39 hectare property. So closer up aerial of the property. A side image taken recently. This proposal is, the proposal is as follows. There is an existing residence and 2 accessory buildings on the property, and the owner would now like to build an additional accessory building. The owner has stated that it is to be used as a detached garage for bikes and cars, and a 2nd story for a home gym. A variance to the side yard setback for the northeast corner of the garage, as well as a 2nd variance for the number of stories allowed has been requested. The owner has noted plans for converting the accessory building into a loft-style accessory suite in the future. It should be noted that under the current regulations and direction by the Okanagan Basin Water Board, as the property is on septic and under 1 hectare, an accessory suite would not legally be allowed. The requested variances are as follows. The side yard setback from a side yard setback of 3 meters reduced to a side yard setback of 2.65 meters, and also a height variance for the number of stories from allowed 1.5 stories to an increase to 2 stories. This is a site plan showing the proposed accessory building. This slide shows the cross section of the accessory building and its height. The construction of the accessory building was started without approval of the variances or building permit. Most of the framing has been completed as seen in the site photo. Staff does not feel that the stated use is in line with the build form already in place. The building does not appear to be feasible for use as a garage. If council does not approve the variance, the owner will be required to remove the building or convert it to conform to the zoning bylaw. If the required changes are not carried out by the owner, council will then have the option of placing a notice on title or taking remedial action. Option A presented is that the development variance permit be approved, and that prior to approval, a covenant be registered on the property title, restricting the accessory building from being converted to an accessory suite. And option B is that the development variance permit be denied and that staff be directed to pursue enforcement action to bring the property to compliance.
Okay. Any questions for the planner? Councillor Gamble?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and that is, and there possibly could be a third option. I'm thinking that one of the options could be approved, the other denied. There could be a split. Is that not correct? Because we've got height and side yard setbacks, right?
Yes.
The 2 different things.
Council may choose to approve one, both, or none of the variances.
Yes, okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Any questions? Councillor Scarrow?
I don't really have a question for Blessy
He's on
yet.
the phone. Okay.
Is that Mr.
Uh,
Gall?
Can I, we have
Yeah,
a
I would
phone
like-
in.
I'd like to
so,
hear from him first.
Is this, because it's a variance, I'd ask anybody in the gallery or anybody online or anybody on the phone wants to phone in, and we do have a phone in. Okay? State your name. Are you there? Can you hear?
Corey Gold.
Okay. Comment?
So I'm just the property owner at 16771 Cars Landing Road. So I signed a rent-to-own deal through a mortgage broker back in the fall. Was way working when the building was started. I was under the impression that the permits were in place until I'd received the email, and that deal has since fell apart. So at this point, I would just like the building to be finished and to a lock-up state so that I can relist the property. So right now, it's depreciating the value of the property.
You're the owner and the building wasn't started by you?
No.
I see. Different switch.
Yeah.
Any questions for the Councillor Scarrow? No. You had a question for the planner. Do you have a question for the owner? Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Corey, is that correct?
Yes.
So I was out at the site there yesterday looking at that. So this is a kind of unique circumstance that you being the owner and not having built the building. And in looking at this building, I have a couple issues with it. It doesn't look like it's a garage, so it looks like it could be a secondary suite to me. And like I say, I'm just from what it appears to be. And then also from looking at the neighbor's place, it looks like it's blocking the view from them as well. So I'm sure that's taking away from their value of their land as well. So that's a couple things I have issues with it myself personally, and I'm just curious is if you would be prepared to bring it into compliance in order to finish this thing off, or what would you be prepared to do in order to get this thing done?
Yeah, I'd be prepared to bring it into compliance. And as far as the neighbor beside or behind, Trammell, I've got an email from him that states, and I believe he sent it in to the development, and he just wants the building finished. He's actually got a better view once we've taken out the trees. So, and right now, like he just said, it's depreciating, and he doesn't want to look out at an unfinished building. He'd rather see it finished. So,
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a question for Blessy, our planner. My understanding is there still needs to be a building permit approved for this development. What is the process if there are irregularities found in that building permit process that need further changes? Would that be handled by the building team, or does it have to come back through council?
It would only have to come back to council if any variances were changing or any additional variances were required.
Okay, but there could be further correction as well as if we were looking at correcting, we didn't agree to the variances and asked for correction. There could be correction as well in terms of the building permit side of things, given it's being taken to this stage of construction without any documentation coming forward to the building team.
The building permit is incomplete at present, and it's going to be completed once council decides on what to do at the variance stage.
Okay, and the stop work order will be in place until that building permit is completed?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Gamble. Oh, I thought you were just helping wave, okay. Well, my question is if it's at a stage, and I didn't get a chance to, other than a windshield assessment, if it's brought into compliance, can that be done at this process, at the building process? My understanding it was too tall, and there's some setback issues. So if it was brought into compliance, I don't know if you have to move the building and or shorten it in some way, then it could continue where it is. Is that the case?
That's correct. The height would have to be reduced to be 1.5 stories, and it would have to conform to the setback. So the building size would have to be reduced slightly.
Okay.
So the side yard setback, as far as the neighbor even said, they surveyed up the fence line, which is probably not accurate, within up to 2 feet.
2 feet setback? 2 meters?
Well,
or 1
Well,
meter?
I'm just saying where the survey was
Oh.
2.65, and it's 3 meters. According to the neighbor who it's encroaching his property, he said it could be 2 feet the other way.
Okay, thank you.
He's not even concerned about that.
Councillor Reid?
Thank you. This is just where my thoughts are at the moment. Noting that the side yard setback is just for the corner of the building, because the building is on an angle away from the fence line. The side yard setback doesn't actually go the entire length of the building, it just sits on one corner. So I'm kind of leaning in my head towards that. But where we come onto the height variance, as I understand it, the 1.5 stories means that the second story has to be 60 centimeters high where it joins the roof eaves. And at the moment it's 1.1 meters high. So we're 50 centimeters higher, half a meter higher than we should be. So in my thoughts, there are 3 options around the height. We can either ask the applicant to make it a single story building at 7.94 meters, which would be in compliance with the height regulation and would be a single story. So taking out the internal floor. The other option is, because the roof and the second story is incomplete, the second set of trusses haven't gone up. One option would be to reduce the height of the overall building and the second story by the 50 centimeters, which would then give you an overall height of 7.44 meters, which would lower the impact on the neighbor. Or the third option is to take off that second story entirely and just put those roof trusses onto that first floor, which would give us a single story dwelling, which would be about 6.33 meters high, again, beneficial to the neighbor. There's also the question of the potential use of the building, and the owner saying that they would like to convert it to an accessory suite, which obviously puts us in contravention of the Okanagan Water Board. So I think we need to consider the recommendation in terms of a covenant on that as well, to restrict that. But that's where my head is at in terms of allowing the side yard setback, but asking for compliance in terms of the height, with 3 options to think about.
Thank you. Councillor Scarrow.
Well said, Councillor Reid. I kind of filtered myself down to about the same solution. I think the side yard setback I have no issue with, and I have no issue with it for the reasons Councillor Reid put forward. The height restriction I do have an issue with, the big issue, and I also have an issue with the future use of this particular building. I do not and will not go against the Okanagan Water Board's recommendation that we do not allow 2 living units on a piece of property that's less than 1 hectare, I believe it is. And this one definitely is that. So I think I'm in line with Councillor Reid, where we want to deal with the height one way or the other. I believe the best way is by making it a 1-story garage. And if the gentleman on the phone, Mr. Glow, would like to build a 1-story garage, I believe that that's quite easily done. We wouldn't even need a variance outside of the side yard setback, which I'm prepared to grant tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good with the 1 story.
Okay. Yeah. Well, can we cobble a resolution or do we, Councillor
Well,
Garland?
yeah, I don't know if I'm a cobbling kind of guy. So I really don't have a problem with the side yard variance either. However, have a huge problem with why this building exists and what it's going to be used for. So, you know, I'm hearing that it can't be a garage. So
Yeah, it can be. It can't be an accessory.
I know it can't be an
a
accessory.
living-
I know that it can't be an accessory building, but I'm also hearing from people that have seen it that it's not set up to be a garage either. So that's my question to this, to you, Corey. Can it be a garage?
Absolutely.
Can it be reformatted to be a garage?
Yes, absolutely.
Because, and to allow it to have the height variance and format it in any other way just leads down to the fact of a building that's going to be used for something that's not legal. And if you look around this community, you're going to see dozens of garages that have little suites up above that were never intended for that use, but that's what they are. And there's no way that the district can go out and find all of these and eliminate them.
Well,
It's just not possible.
They were done before it wasn't illegal.
Well, that's
Some
not
of them.
necessarily
Some
true.
of them.
I can find you 3 in my neighborhood that were done in the
Anyway,
last 5 years.
we can't
But anyways.
sanction them, so.
So I don't know how, this goes to you, Blessy, I suppose. How can we make this a garage? I mean, we can obviously have
Compliant.
enforce an action to not allow it to be a secondary or an accessory suite in this case, but how do we actually make it a garage?
Staff's comment on that was based mainly on what we saw on the side and the arrangement of the existing building. Typically, we do go off of what the applicant states is the intended use of the building.
So, and it can be a garage, but we don't like the height either, so it can be lowered.
So maybe we can hear from Mr. McEwen. He
Yes.
may have a couple of ideas that can help us with this.
Are you there, Jamie?
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. I think with respect to the uses of the property, staff's main concern would be that it not be an accessory suite. If it was used as like a non-vehicular or like a automobile type garage for storing bikes and so on, like an accessory building for storage and like personal use, that would be supportable and allowed under the zone. Less concerned about it being an actual garage. So if council did want to support one or both of the variances, council could specify which one it wished to support, and then also have that covenant in place to restrict the accessory suite from ever being in contravention with the Okanagan Basin Water Board's 1 hectare rule. And those could be some ways that council could address this. In terms of whether it's like an automobile garage, it's not as much of a concern, but it definitely, when we saw that, it didn't line up, and it does look like it could potentially be more of an accessory suite. So as long as that covenant is in place, staff's concerns are probably addressed.
Okay, thank you.
And I wouldn't call it suite though, Your Worship. I would call it accessory building.
They could.
Sir,
Yeah.
are you ready for a motion?
Councillor Scarrow?
I move we support the side yard setback and deny the height variance and the covenant, include the covenant for non-use of
an accessory suite.
That's right. How's that for cobbling?
Second by Councillor Gamble. Discussion?
Can you please say that again?
Okay, I've moved support for the side yard setback to 2.65 from 3 meters, and I've denied support for the height variance, and I've included the covenant that Jamie suggested to prevent that building, whatever it becomes, from becoming
a suite.
A suite. Thank you.
Accessory building.
Accessory.
It's an accessory. Yeah, no, Correct.
Right.
That would be acceptable. Yeah.
Okay. And I
It
have a
is.
seconder. Yeah, Councillor Gamble seconded. Further discussion? Those in
Yeah,
favor?
no, I had a question.
Oh, so, that's right. We got to Councillor Ireland.
So I'll go back to Mr. McEwen. Jamie, how do we enforce that? So we permit this, we don't specify that it has to be a garage or anything like that. So a garage normally hasn't got the furnace, it hasn't got all the heating required that a house has to have. It hasn't got the infrastructure that a house has to have. So how, if we just let this go to be anything that we want, but say it's not supposed to be, how do we enforce it?
The building department.
Yeah, that's a fair question, Council.
See what Jamie said.
Yeah.
Yeah, Your Worship, fair question, and I appreciate that. With respect to this, once council, or if council were to grant the variance, it would go through our building inspection team, who would then check the title documents, which would include the covenant, which would restrict it from ever being an accessory suite. So that would be cross-referenced. It would also be on title in perpetuity, so any future owners would also be informed of those restrictions to not enabling this building to be converted into an accessory suite. If it were to ever be converted in the absence of permits, we would have to follow up on that at present, either based on complaint or through other means if we were to notice it through other permitting processes, as we do with other matters. But we do feel that that by putting the covenant in place, the district has mitigated some of that potential.
Thank you. All right.
So this time, Your Worship, once this is approved, a building permit application needs to go back, probably different from the one that they had before. I hate to say this, Jamie, but you're muted, so we can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, I heard it.
But obviously, the enforcement part is on the building inspector, and everything has to be done through that.
Absolutely, Your Worship. I hope you heard my explanation before, but just mute myself when everyone else is speaking. But yeah, the building inspector would follow up, and in fact, there have been some recent cases where we've gone on site to look at accessory buildings and noted some things that maybe hint at them being eventually converted into an accessory suite, and those are flagged by the building inspectors and then caught and brought into compliance.
Thank you.
So just,
I want carry on. Yeah.
So in 2 years down the road, then this is built, what's the building inspector's involvement going to be? When they've got the building permit, they've got it all signed off, everything's completed, as per what we think should be done, and they just go in and retro it. So we're gonna wait for the neighbor to complain.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we can do, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just can't support that.
A building inspector can go anywhere, anytime.
But they're not going to.
Okay. Councillor Reid, you had a comment?
I did, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder, given the timeline that we've spent on this, the neighbours have had to spend dealing with an incompleted building. Is there any way for council to put some time boxes around the development, the building permit being completed? I know sometimes we grant an extension, but I don't feel that this would be appropriate in this case. Is there anything that we can do, really a question to Alberto, on adding a timeline for this to be finished? Otherwise, the variance lapses.
The development permit actually has a deadline, a timeline. I think it's 5 months. So I mean, Jamie can confirm that, but that's what they have in,
So the building permit has to be completed within the 5 months?
No, the development permit has to be completed by within 5 months, and the building permit, Jamie, you need to help me in that.
Yeah, thank you. So with respect to the building permit, council of course could put a condition saying that all requirements of the building permit application must be submitted prior to, say, 5 months, in line with the conditions of the variance. Now, the one thing that I'd be cautious of is that it's not that the building permit must be issued, because council cannot wade into the operational side of issuing building permits. But that the applicant would complete those requirements. Council could certainly put a condition with that in place.
I would like to add that condition. I think it's important that we get this, if we're going to approve it, and it goes to the vote and passes, that we need to get a timeline on this.
Thank you. Yep. Well, we haven't voted yet, but that's the motion.
I'm not sure if we have a seconder. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Koza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to support Councillor Ireland in saying that I can't support this in any way, shape, or form. To the property owner, I had suggested maybe you would want to talk to the property management company that you hired to do this, because if they would have went and made it into a grow op or anything else, they went and put in a big building. So I think that this is something that if we let this go through, it could come back and bite us, and it's just something that will add more staff hours. So I can't support this in any regard.
All right, thank you. Well, the motion is to get it into compliance by lowering the height and giving a variance for the side yard setback, and a covenant and a timeline of 5 months to complete the building. Those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Ireland, Councillor Koza opposed, motion carries. All right, thank you, and thank you all. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, development permit with a variance.
Can you let them in? Bless you. Thank you.
Are we locked? Are we locked in here? Oh. Backup or switch hitter or something.
Pinch hitter. Thank you, Your Worship. So we have on the docket this evening, development application, DP 2019-026 with variance, Gil Feinstein. The zoning for the property is A1 Agriculture 1. The OCP future land use designation is agricultural. The address is 1101 Camp Road. And this is, as noted, a development permit with variance for the construction of a new single-family dwelling and a variance to allow for an accessory building over 100 meters squared. And the DP is for natural environment, hillside, and greenhouse gas reduction. I'd like to start this presentation by saying that this application generally is a bit of the chicken and the egg syndrome. That is, the applicant is currently planting for farm status. And when he does obtain farm status, which could take up to a year, then this DP and the associated variances would likely not matter. On that note, we'll move forward. So the subject property is 2.22 hectares, which is equivalent to 5.5 acres. I would like to highlight the fact that in the report, there is a slight mistake. This property was highlighted within the report, just making clear that it is this property here. I apologize for that. This is an aerial for the property. You can see from the aerial that we do have an existing single-family dwelling here. And I'm going to go to the next slide because it is a Google Earth rendering, which actually shows it much better. And that is, there is a small shed accessory building down here, along with an access. You can see that just kind of curls around here. The zoning is A1 as noted. That is the zoning map. You can see here from the site plan that their proposed building is actually in front of the existing building. And they have provided, there is provision for a fire turnaround area. These are the elevation drawings.
You can see from the east elevation, the single story. As you move to the rear, it is two stories. This looks like an elevated ceiling here. And again, you can see because it is on a hillside, how this plays out, that their 2 stories are facing the view essentially on the property. And then this is the left south elevation. This is the landscaping plan as part of the development permit. And the provisions of our OCP requirements for landscaping have been met. To be clear, without farm status, and I will have some verbiage around this in the actual presentation, but without farm status, the maximum size of a building you can have is 100 meters squared. That is footprint. That is not floor area. So at this point now, they're asking for a variance to increase that amount to 168.04 meters squared from 100 meters squared so that they can keep the existing building. So as you can see in the top left there, it's a relatively new house. A lot of storage space, I believe 3 garages on that side. The garage is almost the size of the actual living area in the building. And then you can see here, so when I did go to site and speak with the homeowner at the site, they were already moving dirt around. Technically, without a DP, you shouldn't technically be doing that. However, they do have the use of agriculture and can start planting, and they're already working towards their farm status. So as you can see here, they're going to be doing a Christmas tree farm, and they're already starting to plant. The applicant was nice enough to let me in his greenhouse in the back there, and you can see they've already bought stock, and they're looking to do this, and they're already working on it. This is the small house at the bottom I noted in the Google Earth rendering. And the driveway access actually comes down, curls around slightly like this. It is on a hairpin turn. So the property does have an existing single-family dwelling, which is 168.04 meters squared. There is also an accessory building located on the subject property, which is approximately 36 meters squared. When the applicant proposed a new house, it was determined that the existing house would have to be decommissioned to allow for the construction of the new home. That is because in the agricultural land reserve, you cannot have 2 single-family dwellings, especially under the new regulation 1st of 2019, which requires what they call a non-adhering residential use application. So additionally, because the property does not have farm assessment, then such a decommissioned building to accessory building can only have the maximum size as noted numerous times. So they are asking for that variance. The development permit with the variance was submitted on August 24th of 2019 and was considered complete on February 20th of 2020. So a single-family dwelling is an allowable principal use within the A1 Agriculture 1 zone. As noted, new ALC legislation that was enacted in November of 2019, February 22nd of 2019 allows for a single-family dwelling, but only up to a maximum of 500 meters squared. The proposed home on this site in the DP is just under that at 495.17 and meets the requirements of both the district zoning bylaw and of the Agricultural Land Commission. However, there's an existing single-family dwelling, which is why the applicant is asking for the variance, because they can't have 2 single-family dwellings. So if council were to grant this variance to allow an increase in the size, that building would then be decommissioned, thereby no longer being a single-family dwelling and an accessory building. And as noted already through the beginning slides, it doesn't have farm classification, but they're working towards that. And they're doing that when I was at the site last week, and it's quite noticeable. So I imagine it'll probably be a year before BC Assessment would grant some form of farm assessment for the property. And the applicant has noted that they are looking at, as noted, the Christmas trees in the future. They're actually doing that right now. So the applicant has obtained a driveway access permit for the main proposed project. However, it has been noted that an informal access to a secondary accessory building on the property does not have an access permit on file. Therefore, a prior to condition to formalize this access forms a part of the preferred option A. Staff are in support of option A for the reasons noted. Additionally, if council were not to approve the variance, then the applicant will more than likely tear down the existing building, which was built in 2006, meaning the waste associated with the building would be generated and have to be removed from the site and quite possibly to a landfill. So the option A, staff preferred, is that the development permit for the subject property for a new single-family dwelling and the variance to the existing accessory building from 100 meters squared to 168.04 meters squared be approved, and that prior to issuance, the applicant apply for a driveway access permit for the secondary access, and that any secondary access be required to meet the provisions of our highway and driveway regulation bylaw, and that prior to issuance, the applicant provides security to the chief financial officer of just about $47,000, and further that the applicant has the stated amount of time within our application procedures bylaw of 5 months with an additional extension of 3 months of counsel. Alternatively, option B is that development permit for the subject property be denied. Thank you, Your Worship. That concludes my presentation.
Councillor Reid had a question for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My question would be, what do you mean by the building being decommissioned? What does that actually entail?
So if council were to approve the recommendation, then the next step would be to get a building permit for decommissioning and removal of the kitchen, plumbing associated with the kitchen. All of these things are to assure that that building, it cannot be used for residential purposes.
Okay, and that's perfect answer. And then what would happen if they decided not to pursue farm status? They would be still able to build the house, but without, we would have granted the variance, but without the farm status.
I would say yes, correct.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Councillor Scarrow.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your presentation. So I have two questions. One of them kind of touches on what Cara's been talking about. If in 1 year they plant the Christmas trees and manage to get farm status, if they had decided to do this construction 1 year from now and they had farm status, would they be allowed to build a new house and maintain the existing house as a house?
No, they would not be able to. So if they were to maintain farm status, they would still have to decommission the existing single-family dwelling unless they went to the Agricultural Land Commission for a non-adhering residential use application, which council would see.
Okay, that's a nice answer. Thank you. The second point or question I have is my concern about, I'm confused about the access. Now you say there's unpermitted access to the accessory building, and then there is one legal access to this property. Is the legal access the one that comes right off the hairpin?
Great question. So one of the things we notice a lot in Lake Country is that because of our history, we have a lot of accesses that may not have been permitted by the district. There is a move by the administration and by our engineering team to start to formalize accesses that may not have been previously formalized. And we're doing that as both as part of the development permit process as well as building permit processes. So what we have here is this, we don't have anything on record for when this was put into place.
Oh, good.
We're not sure why that would may be the case, but again, we're moving to a state where we're starting to formalize these. This is the main access, and we have issued an approved driveway access for this.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And there's no approved driveway access for that one off the hairpin?
There is not, and as part of the resolution, we would like to see an application for that.
An application for that exact location, or an application for an alternate location that serves a purpose in a safer way?
That is a great question. We would leave that up to our district engineers.
I guess that's
as part of the application process.
10-4, thank you.
Thank you. Who did I have? Councillor Gamble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a couple of questions as well. First of all, I was wondering where the farm plan is that is accompanying this. I did not read it in the package.
So farm plans are not actually a requirement. They're not a district requirement. They're not even a provincial requirement. In fact, farm plans, especially environmental farm plans, can be done.
I'm not talking about an environmental farm plan. I'm asking about proof that they actually have a plan to do a farm activity.
That was not submitted. However, as per the photos, and I was on site, it is very clear that they are planting. But to your direct answer to your question is there is no farm plan submitted with this application.
Because things like irrigation would be required. We need, information on that. So I have concerns. I mean, anybody can say that. I know in the past, when we've had applications of this nature, we normally have a farm plan submitted. In fact, we've often deferred in order to get that farm plan. So that's why I was looking for that. Also, I guess it's very important to me that if we're going to permit a second home, which is going to be the principal residence on this property, it's very important to me that it should be needed for agricultural use. You don't just build a second home because it's cheap land. That's, in my opinion, an abuse of agricultural land. Cheap residential housing, that's an abuse, in my opinion. The actual use of the agricultural land should be for food production, or this is Christmas tree production. It could become something else as well that is an agricultural use, so that's fine. But I see no justification. This is a 5.5 acre piece of land. I don't know how much they're planning to farm. It could be they're going to have 2 rows. You know, we don't know that. So the justification to build a second house for a full time, that's what a house is. It's a residential unit for a full-time operator. And for 5.5 acres of forestry trees that would likely be drip irrigated, you know, or microjets maybe, you know, probably weed sprayed as well. I find it really hard to fathom how we could support having a second residence on that property. Now, in addition to that, and if you have a reason, if you can explain some reason for that, I'd love to hear it.
So our reasoning from the planning side is that through the decommissioning process, that is no longer going to be a secondary residence. It will be an accessory building. To your point around a farm plan, there hasn't been one submitted, so I'm not sure 100% what they're going to do with that. However, as per the pictures, it's very clear that they're planting, it looks as if, and perhaps the applicant is here, so perhaps they may be better able to speak to that.
And that's what I'm looking for. And
Absolutely.
It is necessary, because to put that big investment on, I have one more question, and that is that third house on the property, which is a small little building that we used to call the Queen Bee's residence. It's known for that, and ever since I was little, because it was actually a picker's accommodation. But over the years, there was a person that lived there year-round. It was a very modest accommodation, but they did live there. And it's still there. Now, it seems to me that at a minimum, the access would be canceled, and that would have to be removed. Why would we permit a third house on that property?
So again, to be very clear, that is not a third home. It may have been used for that in the past, but it would actually be classified as an accessory building currently. And under the zoning requirements, you are allowed to have accessory buildings, not just one, but multiple. And each one can be up to 100 meters squared. This is the reason for their asking for the variance for the house. They don't require a variance for this one. So it would still be in line with our zoning, as long, to your point, they are not single-family residences, that if they were,
So-
that would not be allowable.
So further to my question is, could then the access, because it isn't legal, could it be closed?
I
In that
can't,
way, making that road much safer.
I can't speak to, for our engineering department. That was what part of the application process for driveway access. Our engineering team, if they feel or deem that to be unsafe, more than likely may not grant access. We can't say that right now because we haven't had a chance to take a look at the proposal.
Okay, but just from the point of view of council, could we put a requirement for that be looked at, or maybe it would have to be referred
That's
back, I
approving
guess.
I would say that in these cases, it's in the purview of the director of engineering. So council cannot really put any conditions on access. Access will be
So,
considered, it's because it's already existing, access will be considered by the Director of Engineering
Anyway,
based on an application following council's decision whether or not they want to have that access looked after.
mhm.
okay.
Okay, I'll just stop there.
I had Councillor McKenzie.
Your mic's still on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With this one here, to me, it looks like we're ending up with one house. That's all we're allowed here, so I'm good with that. I was curious about the farm plan, and obviously we have somebody that suggests they have a farm plan, so I'd be curious to listen to this and then have a little follow-up.
Okay. I had the applicant.
Your Worship, I also want to remind that because there is a variance involved, we need to ask for public input.
Yes.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm the builder that's holding the application, so just representing the owner.
And your name is?
We need your name for the record.
Sorry, Charlotte Erdely. Just a quick little bit of history before I address the first two concerns there. I met with the client and first started this process close to 2 years ago now. And when they purchased the property less than 5 years ago, they're from Vancouver. He's a retiring fire chief in Coquitlam, born and raised on a farm out in the Okanagan, and their dream was always to retire back here. Being in the government sector, or I'm not sure if fire is government sector, but he does have an early retirement, so he's not retiring. He's retiring fit and ready to get back to his roots, and wife as well. So they purchased the property because of its potential, its location, and obviously its view. And their dream to use that property was for the Christmas tree farm. They have already planted 157 noble fir, and I believe in the greenhouse she told me she has about 57, I can't remember the name of the other tree, I apologize, in works there. But we have constantly encouraged them to slow down. Obviously, they were hoping when they bought this property that they would have already had their son's wedding in the new house last year. So share with me their frustration. When they bought the property, they did their due diligence. They came to the District of Lake Country and pulled every file that was possible under the then current regulations. At the time, the accessory building that we are applying for the variance, when we came into the District of Lake Country, they pulled the permit on it. It was always called an accessory building. It was never referred to as a house or a queen bee nest or whatever. That's regarding the smaller one. But and at that time, I can't give you the very specifics, but at that time, there was not a regulation in place that would say that an accessory building had to be 100 meters squared. So that has kind of come, as often things do, the goalpost moves. So they were quite disappointed to find out when I went in with my building permit that in fact that variance was even going to be required. So, and second to that, they also weren't overly aware of the time-consuming nature of the 4 DPs and the expense that comes with the ECORA report. But we've made it through all of that. We've been encouraged by the District of Lake Country that applying for the variance was probably our best method. They are actively going to pursue farm status. This is the first that I've heard about a farm plan. It has not come up in any conversation with the district to date. But they have moved dirt around. They have planted trees already. They have a greenhouse in place, and they've been actively working with the district regarding irrigation. Because right now they are paying to water those trees with house residential water as opposed to what I think is a lesser rate. So they are as eager as anything to get that moving along as well. So I think that's what I have for history. Now you have to remind me what some of those concerns might have been.
Councillor Gamble will ask you again.
Okay, thank you.
So the question that I had asked the planner, and that was, why do they need a second dwelling?
Oh, thank you.
You know, because we're talking 5 acres. We're
Sure.
not talking 50.
Sure. In all fairness, 5.5 acres, this accessory building at 168 meters square, as Paul had said, over half of that space is garage space. So it's not like this accessory building house, as you call it, is actually of any sort of nice new home, if you will. So yes, it's maybe relatively new construction being under 20 years old, but I don't think it was ever really an intended, nowadays, as a single family builder, most people, even in the retirement community that we build mostly in Lakestone, people are looking for 32 to 3,400 square feet for just two people. So I don't think that their needs for wanting something better than what was there is necessarily
That
wrong.
wasn't my question.
Okay.
It wasn't to do with residential.
Right.
The question was specific to the farming activity.
Right.
If you didn't buy land in the ALR, it wouldn't be significant.
Right.
But it is in the ALR.
Right.
And that's why it's significant.
Right. And that's why and they also chose it because it was in the LR, because they also do want to farm. So we are kind of at it doesn't have a lot of farming potential just because it is quite a steep incline. So them doing their research of how they could use it, what they could put on it, what would fare well, and then also have some, demand. I don't know what else to say other than that they were attracted to the property for its potential and just want a more substantial home on it to go with their long-term vision.
Very good.
Yeah.
Councillor Reid, did you have a question for the planner or for the applicant?
Ask my question of Charlotte there. So my question would be, and it goes back to Councillor Gamble's point, which I think is very well made, is what is going to be the farm use of the accessory building? Because the planner indicated that the other option is for them to tear it down. So it doesn't sound like it's serving any need and for the farm status or for the agricultural use of the land. So if they're willing, if on one hand it wants to be an accessory building and it has a use, but the alternative is if they don't get the variance to tear it down, I'm struggling with those two because they're kind of the opposites of each other.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest, as I read through the report and what came to council, I haven't heard a lot of terminology come my way that they are interested in tearing it down. I think if anything, they would pursue as they are right now, the quicker they can get to farm status, because we're not, we're close to 2 years into this whole process that potentially, as much as we would love to move forward with that building permit and get the variance, they're well on their way to just assuming that it could maybe not happen and that they just go straight for farm status.
So do they have a planned use for the newly decommissioned building?
I would think at this point the garage is probably the better use of it. They would like to, they're going to have farm equipment and stuff like that, so the triple car garage is obviously useful to that. The little accessory building down on the bottom, I'm not sure what purpose it has other than that old access that was already there. From a safety perspective of driving on that road, it sits right on the hairpin, so no one's going around there very fast anyways. And we're all very used to all of the tractors and things that are running on these roads. So I don't think that access permit will be a problem. As far as what they're going to do with the building, I haven't overly asked them. I'm kind of learning through this as it goes. If we have to decommission it, that's going to be quite a process, and it will take a fair bit of time to get that and then pass the inspections that are required. And then it will take us a good 8 months to a year to construct a new house. So that gives ample opportunity for the inspectors who are constantly on site doing other inspections to, I suppose, make sure that we're complying with this decommissioned kitchen. I would imagine by the time the house was finished construction, we probably would have farm status. If at that point they want to apply for the, I can't remember what you called it, about non-adhered use, something like that, that if they wanted to recommission that house at that time when they had farm status, they could make that application.
I suppose I'm just struggling given the sense that, variances are there to solve a problem. Right. I'm just struggling to find out what problem this is trying to solve rather than a desire, which is, a lot of people have desires to have their house a certain size or their dock a certain length. And we all have them. Sure. That's the nature of human. So I'm just trying to work out, is there a problem that needs to be addressed with the variance? And well, I hear a desire, but I don't hear a problem.
It's kind of half problem, half desire. I think the moving goalposts is part of the problem, that people have made a pretty substantial investment into the area. They've made substantial retirement plans and sold their home and have invested all of this money under the pretense of doing their diligence of what at the time was allowable. And then by the time we got to here, the goalpost moved on November 2019. So it's unfortunate, but it is our reality.
But they could still continue with that dream. If the dream is to farm, they have the ability to farm. They can continue to farm. They can apply for farm status, and then farm status will give them everything else that they potentially need. So it's a change. I completely agree, and must be incredibly frustrating.
Right.
But equally, they can pursue their dream of farming with a house that overlooks.
It
an
just
amazing-
postpones their vision 2 years outside of the 2 years we're already into it. So yes, it could be done. It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
Anyway, Councillor Scarrow, one more.
Okay.
Hang in there.
Well, I'm kind of thinking a little differently.
Okay.
Number one, the accessory house is a constructed home right now that the plan is to decommission and use as an accessory building for a 5.5 acre farm. Well, I've born and raised on a farm, and having a accessory building around, is helpful. We have equipment, we have storage, we have fertilizers, we have a whole bunch of different things that go along with farming, whether it be Christmas trees or peaches. And the waste of tearing down and throwing away and this, just taking it to the landfill of an existing building that could be used as an accessory building is just a waste for me. And I don't see that as something that I'm even the least bit desired in doing.
Neither's the client.
As far as the Queen Bee building goes, I think there might be some heritage qualities there. I've been driving by that little building my whole life.
The one at the bottom where
It's kind of a landmark,
Right.
so to speak. And I don't believe anybody today could live in that, although back in the day, when, farm labor and stuff like that was able to use that, I could see that being a use. But I think it's kind of a signpost for Lake Country entering Okanagan Center. So quite frankly, I'm in support of option A.
Thank you. I'll ask if there's anybody else from the gallery wish to address council on this, and council has certainly had a lot of opportunity to ask questions. Yes, do come forward. State your name.
My name's Matt Spinkley, and we own the adjoining property on McGowan Road. So we're up the hill from this property. We've been down and had a look at at another piece that's a little further up in the corner. So we saw what the property looks like, and our concern is kind of goes back to the variance that you dealt with before this one, is that we're worried that this residence is going to be a residence, this secondary building, and that's our concern. And I've heard what the people have said. It's going to become an accessory building, a garage, a shop, whatever. But you're looking at a fairly substantial house that's going up there, which is quite large to start off with. Then you're going to have a 1,600 square foot shop, and then another building as well. So you're going to end up with three buildings on the same property, and we're just concerned. I guess if you put some kind of a caveat like you did on the prior applicant, that outbuilding could not be used as any kind of a residence, then we would probably be okay with it. But if there's a chance that it can be used as a residence, then we have a problem with that. Okay, that's our problem. So that's why I'm here to speak for. Okay.
Thank you.
I also wanted to just make clear that I don't know anything about how the rules change, but in my opinion, variances shouldn't be used that often. And when we're looking at going from 100 square meters to 168, it's a fairly substantial variance. I built two large auto dealerships in Kelowna, and we didn't have to get one variance. We did our research in advance. We knew what we were allowed to do. We bought the property, and we didn't have to have one variance. Okay, so I think it's up to the owner to make sure they know what they're doing and get on with it, okay? So,
Thank you.
okay?
Planner, address that?
Only to say, your worship, that a secondary single-family residence on that property is not allowable by any stretch of the imagination, either by the District of Lake Country through our zoning bylaw and/or the Agricultural Land Commission. So if by chance the applicant was not to adhere to the rules of the district and we were to get a formal bylaw complaint, we would deal it through that process, which council is very aware of.
Yeah. Councillor Ireland hasn't spoken.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I've got concerns about this is an 1,800 square foot house for a 5.5 acre property. It's a pretty large shop for a Christmas tree farm. I've been to a few Christmas tree farms, and usually, they have a garage, a single garage, and that's usually enough. I do get taking it to the dump. I'm not really a big fan of replacing perfectly good houses, and I'm not really a big fan of big houses, and I think that this, as Councillor Gamble said earlier, is a bit of a travesty on agricultural land to go in there and the farming is totally secondary. We're just looking to build a big monster house and throw a little bit of farming around the side of it, and I think that's not the intent of the ALR, and I think it's not the intent of the zone, but it is allowed, so there's not much we can do about that. So just to confirm, if they achieve farm status, they still can't recommission that home. That's what I'm confirming. Not from you either, from somebody who knows.
And I will confirm that absolutely, even with farm status. So one of the interesting points of discussion here has been around, how much accessory building use can be used. With farm status, there is no limitation other than site coverage. So when and if they were to obtain farm status, they could actually probably build more accessory buildings on their straight to building permit, because that's the way our zoning reads. So, but of course, this is a variance on a case-by-case basis, so that is something the council may wish to consider at this point. But the applicant could wait 1 year, get farm status, and essentially be commissioned, of course, again, through the building permit process, as well as build additional accessory buildings if they would want to.
Could you confirm the request is to build a single-family home? Could you put up the size of the single-family home?
Yeah, so the size of the single-family home is 495.04, and it is actually just below the recommended maximum allowable building. The ALC just finished changing their regulations, and that's 500 meters squared max.
Microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my apologies. And that's just right. That one? Next one. So 495.17 meters squares, and it does meet both the requirements of our zoning bylaw and the Agricultural Land Commission legislation.
Okay. But there was a plan for the house. It was, I didn't have it in my report, but.
So perhaps what I can do, Your Worship, is this is a site plan, so you can see here, it is a big home. It's just under the allowable limit that the LC has now made of 500 meters squared. It's approximately 5,000 square foot home, so it's quite large. And this is the footprint you can see here. I'm just kind of doing the outline, and then the elevation drawings again, 2 stories.
Okay, and the existing home on back that, the existing
The
home,
existing home is right here, Your Worship.
and it will stay,
If council grants the variance,
but decommissioned.
but decommissioned. Yes, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. Councillor Scarrow.
Thank you. Just taking Mance's suggestion a little bit further, could we add a covenant like we did on the last one to this? And if we did do that, would it have any effect? Would it do any good?
Great question. Council could if they wish, resolve to put a restrictive covenant on the property as it relates to enforcement. I'll say this lightly, I'm not sure that there'd be much of a difference. Someone still has to enforce the covenant, which would be district staff, which we would also enforce the provisions of our zoning bylaw. So could council do that? Absolutely. How effective it may be, not probably more effective than our bylaw situation.
But it would be registered on title.
It would be registered on the land
So
title.
any
That is
future,
absolutely.
any future buyers or anything would be made aware of it.
Absolutely.
Councillor Campbell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just reading the preferred staff option, I don't see anything in that option that suggests any decommissioning. So that would have to be a change to this particular resolution. There's nothing in here that discusses that being decommissioned. And I guess the reason I see that as being important from a use perspective is that there will be some need for storage for the Christmas trees, for sure. So, I mean, the 3-car garage, you know, they could definitely convert that to some storage. That, you know, that's very reasonable. So, you know, I think that for me, that's very important, because otherwise we're encouraging small acreages to put second homes, you know, or to keep second homes on the acreage that's really not necessary. If it's being used for agriculture, that'd be different. So all I'm suggesting is that in that resolution, we need to add some wording, and I'm looking at the planner, and I'm suspecting that he's writing that in.
I was drafting something. I was drafting, so I appreciate the comment. It would be normal part of our processing, but I appreciate the comment. If council would like to add something to that effect, we could do. And that prior to issuance, and that the building be the existing single-family dwelling be decommissioned.
As a residence.
Be decommissioned into an accessory building.
Into an accessory for farm use.
For farm use. Accessory building for farm use.
And we've done that in previous occasions when people wanted to build and they had to decommission the other.
I mean, the other option, it would be to send it to the Land Commission and let them make the decision. There's this NARU. It's,
but
I can't remember, but
non-adhering residential use, NARU.
That's it, NARU. That's all I remember. And they do make a decision then for us. But I mean, this meets the needs, and I would.
And this leaves only one resident on the property.
Yes, I don't know if anybody else has comments. I mean,
Are you also requiring a restrictive covenant?
No, just to be decommissioned.
Just a decommission?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just asking.
Okay. Did we lose?
What would be the benefit of the restrictive covenant, maybe?
Again, and I'm not proposing to say that there may or may not be a benefit, but to your point, through your worship, is that the restrictive covenant would be on the land title. So anyone that purchased the property in the future, someone could say that just it being in the Agricultural Land Commission is almost like a covenant of its own. But if council would want to wish to put a covenant to feel comfortable, we can absolutely add that into the resolution.
It has to go to the land.
Okay.
We'll take the covenant. Okay. So then we could add. So maybe I'll just repeat, because that would be 2 new lines. And that prior to issuance of the development permit, a restricted covenant restricting the use of the building to agricultural purposes be registered on the land title. Something to that effect.
Yeah.
Buildings, fair enough. And that, I'll just repeat the one we just finished doing, and that prior to issuance of an existing single-family dwelling, sorry, and that prior to issuance of the existing single-family dwelling building permit, the existing single-family dwelling be decommissioned
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
to an accessory
You're
building.
moving it? Who's moving it?
Yeah, we'll add into to an accessory building.
Yeah, well,
Councilor
okay.
McKenzie, second. Councilor Scarrow, move.
Sorry, what's going on?
Councilor Scarrow, move.
Oh, okay.
Oh, did I ask
Yes, you did.
anybody else from the gallery? I did ask that, didn't I?
Yeah.
All right. Councilor
So-
Scarrow, Councilor McKenzie, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. You got it. All right, next one up. Development.
Man, you gotta stay, Liam. You came in, you gotta stay. Came late, we're leaving early. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks. So, development permit. Next one up. You got it?
Thank you, Thank you, Your Worship. This is DP 2019-030-C. The zoning for the property currently is RU1 Single Family Housing. The OCP does have it as a future land use designation of urban residential. The address is 11418 Okanagan Center Road West. This is a development permit for the construction of a new single-family dwelling and an attached garage. And the development permits are natural environment and greenhouse gas reduction. The subject property, as noted here, is right on the foreshore, thereby being subject to RAR in this case. We'll get into that. Council's been apprised of the recent changes to RAPR, which is Riparian Area Protection Regulation, and through strategy session, had a conversation with the province on that item. So this directly links into those conversations you had with the province at the strat session. The subject property is 0.64 hectares or 0.16 acres. As you can see here, this is an aerial just showing the house on the property. Google Earth rendering from the water side because it's so nifty and you can rotate it. We got the dock that have the house as it exists today. One other thing I should mention is the applicant is here today. So if council may have any questions for the applicant, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to answer some questions. The zoning for the property is RU1 as noted. This is a site plan, so perhaps I'll wait till the slides and discuss it, but they are looking to move the existing single-family dwelling off of the site and build a new single-family dwelling. This is the site plan they provided for that. Elevation drawings is it's 2-story, fairly modern, flat top. Those elevations. The landscape plan, which again, given the riparian area regulations, is very important. So you can see here that there's been a significant improvement to the riparian vegetation that is going to be placed on the property. I will get into this in the slides as well, but you'll see the red area there, here, and it does say 77 meters squared. So when you encroach into the streamside protection and enhancement area, there are what we call replacement criteria. I'll get into that a little bit further in the slides. So these are some site photos. This front of the property facing west, pretty modest home. Kind of looks like a bungalow. The front yard facing northwest. We have a shot from the lawn currently. You can see that there is some vegetation on the foreshore, but it's not much, nowhere close to what would be required under the RAR. So this would be an improvement in some ways. And then that's a picture of the house from the gravel towards the house. So the applicant applied for development of the site on October 11th, 2019. It was considered complete on December 3rd, 2019. This is where I got my dates mixed up a little bit because we've had so many changes at the regulatory level, but RAR changed on November 1st of 2019. And so you can see from the intake date to the actual complete date, it actually changed in between that. So these changes require that all reports, as council was notified by the province at strat session, by a qualified environmental professional, meet the riparian area reporting criteria as assessed by the province. As noted, since this application was received prior to the legislative changes to RAR, now wrapper, then this file is being assessed under the previous RAR regulations, which allows two things. It allows for non-compliant reporting if supported by a qualified environmental professional and a subsequent council decision. Revised driveway access permit A 2019-094 was issued by the engineering department on October 28th of 2019. So the development is to relocate the existing single-family dwelling situated on the property and to construct a new single-family dwelling with an attached garage. The approximate total development footprint for the project is 322 meters squared, which equates to approximately 3,466 feet squared. The total size of the lot is approximately 673 meters squared. So you can see here that the size of the development is approximately half of the total site. The applicant submitted an environmental report that notes that as per the provincial reporting criteria, the streamside protection and enhancement area should be 30 meters. However, the qualified environmental professional has noted that in this case, they support a 15-meter SPIA for the project. Staff understands that a 30-meter SPIA would amount to an undue hardship, especially in the way that if you then layer in our zoning requirements for setbacks, it would leave for a very small, what we call building envelope. So through the referral process, it was noted that the restorative measures for the RAR had not been met. So as part of the original application, the restorative plantings were quite under. Because as noted here, 77 meters squared at a 1.5 restoration means that they had to adhere to 115.5 meters squared of restorative plantings. So we let the applicant know that that was insufficient to come to council, and the applicant did revise their proposal, and here we are today, and it does meet the requirement. So our first option, staff preferred, is that the development permit for the subject property for the construction of a new single-family dwelling and an attached garage be approved, and that prior to issuance, the the chief financial officer receive an amount of $5,548, and further that the requirements of the application procedures bylaw be met, which includes 5 months with an opportunity to ask council for an additional 3 months for the prior to issuance clauses. Alternatively, your worship, that development permit for the subject property for the same construction be denied. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Okay. Got a question?
This would be for the applicant, most likely. Given the site coverage by the house, I find it a little hard to believe it's 50% of the lot, but anyways, I'd like to know where the septic is going. You're required to have a septic field and a backup field. You now have only the front of the house to put it in, it appears to me, and the septic is required to be 30 meters back from the lake. So I don't know where you're going to put that. So I'd like to know.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Councilman Ireland, we have...
Okay, you have to state your name.
Oh, sorry. My name is Chris Grafton from Rockwood Custom Homes.
Okay.
We do have a new septic design coming in. The septic is all along the whole front, starting at the 30-meter mark, which is currently sits right at the about 5 meters back from the front of the property, from the frontage of the property, going through the front. All of the holding tanks and everything are to be situated underneath the back deck. And I haven't submitted it because the septic design is part of the building permit package, but I'm happy to get that in front of people.
Yeah, I'd really like to know exactly what's going to happen there.
Sure.
Because, if you say that the front of the house is back 30 meters, then we're we're already at the sphere that the province wants. So,
No, sorry, the front of the house.
The front of the house.
So yes, the new property sits right, right at the 15-meter mark.
right,
And ends right at the current home that's on there
yeah.
sits at the front of the house, a street side front of the house sits at 30 meters. Sorry.
That wrong way, sorry. Maybe that'll help?
Yes, yeah, currently. So the 15-meter mark sits right here. And the 30-meter mark is currently sitting right here. And the new, I can't scroll up there, but the new septic field is all encompassed in the front, behind the 30-meter mark.
So what's on top of that?
Fully permeable surfaces and grasses, and grass.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yep.
Councillor Reid.
Councillor Gamble's mic here again. Okay, maybe this is a combination to Chris
Sure.
and to Paul. So when the report was first submitted to, the plans were submitted in October, Flynn Rowe made a comment that the spear was measured off the high water mark. There was also a comment that this was recognized in the environmental report that was then done in May. So looking at the document that's supplied with the environmental report, it has a line from the present natural boundary back to the property, and it hits a deck, and it hits the deck at 13 point, I'm guessing 5.2 meters. It's difficult to read the plan. So question, is that not less than the spear at 15 meters? So what we're really asking for is a 13.25 meter spear? Because it's if I'm reading the report correctly.
This is hard to read up here.
It's in the site plan that's actually attached to the environmental report. And it has a line from the property, present natural boundary, and it hits a deck. There's there's a pillar and then a deck. See this line here? So I've had to make it bigger. Sorry, guys. So here's your present natural boundary. And then that's the deck. I don't know what this is here with the pillar, but then the line here with the measurement, 13.894852, I don't know. And the high water mark is there. So I understood that the spear was not to be disturbed, therefore it couldn't have a deck. Therefore, the deck would have to start at 15 meters from the present natural boundary. If I'm reading it right. Yeah. Question.
Through your worship, that is exactly what we would expect through the QEP report.
Okay.
At 15 meters.
So the QEP report appears to show it at 13.9 something or 5 something. I'll give you the page number.
It's on page 14. I want your page. You're on page 14.
I'm on, what page am I on?
Where's the driveway going to be?
I'm on Schedule C. It doesn't have a page number.
Yeah, not much.
And you have to zoom in. It's site plan A1A, sorry, A1.1. With a date of July 10th.
Yeah. Okay.
Appendix B, it's appendix proposed works plan. Yeah, and then it goes into Appendix D, which is confusing. Okay. You see? So the line is there. So that's the line from the present natural boundary to the patio. Yeah, and it looks like the patio comes a little bit further even than that. I'm on Appendix B.
Yeah, so it'll be like page 45.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
There's one on page 14, definitely shows.
Yeah, you got to come down.
That's where we got a mess that I think I'm just gonna take.
Yeah.
It definitely says 13. Yeah, you see on mine, it shows right here, 15 meter. 15, I'm on page 14 of the 15 meter.
From the high water mark, but it's not, it's saying that natural boundary, so you
To page 44.
you got it,
Yeah, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, of course. I guess the question staff might be able to tell us is,
Well,
is that the patio? I can't tell by looking at
so,
this.
so there is debate around present natural boundary and high water mark. I believe when we were speaking with with Nicholas from the riparian area, is that QEPs will quite often use present natural boundary or the high water mark. They're usually pretty close, and there can be some confusion there, which is why I believe FLNRO made the comments that they did make. That being said, in this particular case, we could revise the site plan, have the applicant revise the site plan to be within the 15 meters, and as revised, if that would satisfy council.
Speaking personally, I would like, if we are going to be considering a 15-meter sphere, I would like it to be a 15-meter undisturbed sphere. And if that means adjusting the site plan and adjusting the patio, then to me that's something, because otherwise we're looking at asking for a 13-meter sphere or 13.5-meter sphere, which I don't think is another step entirely.
Yeah.
And so we could say, and that prior to issuance, the applicant provide a site plan showing that everything is outside of the 15-meter SPIA, and that council adopt that as revised. That is also another option.
Septic, and I'd like to see the septic met.
Okay, so if I hear correctly, Your Worship, there may be a desire to defer this to staff
Yes.
with a request that the SPIA requirements
Unencumbered.
be demonstrated, and that a septic plan be submitted to council for consideration.
Right.
Anything else?
You moved, and Councillor.
This problem.
No. Somebody seconded? Councillor Gamble seconded? Further discussion?
Yeah.
It's a referral. Yeah.
Mr. Ireland has some comments
Councillor,
probably.
we referred back to staff.
So in our discussion with the province, the reason that they've changed all these things is because of the difficulty they have with QEPs submitting their plans and the plans not being, no offense to you guys, but you're not the QEP. You hire someone to do the job for you. And the reason the province has done this is because the reports they're getting are not accurate and not, I'm searching for a politically correct word here. Not protecting the environment the way that they're supposed to be doing. So, this is dicey because I don't know if we involve the province to look at the QEP's work because we're not capable of doing that. We don't have the expertise to overlook that.
But this is a referral, yeah. referred back to.
So we're referring back to staff
Yeah.
for those.
Well, that's the question I'm asking, I guess.
That's a different issue.
I believe that Mr. McEwen is on the line, so I think
Maybe we can ask him.
I believe we can certainly send it back to, send it to the province for their approval.
If council would so like, council could certainly pass this along to the province for their level of approval. It does negate I think the semi-grandfathering type process that the province did put in place, which has led to council considering it this way tonight. But that's certainly at council's discretion if they'd like to defer that to the province for the province's feedback on this application.
Sorry, can I just have a redress there?
Yeah.
How would that affect our request for the septic plans? I'm directing that to Jamie.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor and Council. If Council also wanted to see that, Council could make that a request and it could come back to Council as well, perhaps prior to it being forwarded to the province or concurrently to being forwarded to the province. The province would certainly consider the QEP's report, and if Council were to forward it onto the province, it would likely go through what the province has deemed the hardship process, and our senior planner Paul Dupuis may be able to comment on that as well.
No comments.
Your Worship.
Covered it. Okay.
Your Worship, if you don't mind, I think, first of all, this is a development permit, so council has to approve a development permit in any case to have a construction there of a building. So the original motion, which is on the table, in my mind, still stands. I think an additional motion can also be passed, or an amendment to this motion that this be referred to the province can also be attached to it, and that would complete all the concerns that I heard around council. There is no problem with that, but the requirements that of the SPIA and the septic field are certainly part of the local government area of authority, which is part of the development permit.
Right.
So there is a development permit and it needs to be addressed.
And is by referring it back to staff addressing?
Yeah, so I have that, the motion I have is that the application be referred back to staff for the SPIA concern be demonstrated or addressed, and that and the septic plan be submitted to council for consideration. And now we're adding, and also that that the province be provided with a request to comment on
the SPIA encroachment.
Yes, on the SPIA encroachment.
Okay, good. You got it?
Are we okay with that?
Good. Those in favor? Oh, did I have a mover?
Yeah, there is a mover and seconder.
It's moved in second?
Yeah.
Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. You got your marching orders. Thanks. All right.
Unanimous?
All the way down to councillor items. Where
We still have one Goldie Road, one more report.
all right. Non-adhering. Sorry, Paul. I didn't want to steal your thunder.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is file number ALR 2019-012 Burke. The zoning is A1 Agriculture 1. The OCP has a future land use designation of agricultural. The address for the property is 1890 Goldie Road. This is a non-adhering residential use application, or a NARU, for farm worker housing on the second floor of an accessory building. The subject property, as you can see here, is at the bottom of Goldie Road and you can see how it turns off here, just by Okanagan Center Road East. And it's 3.4 hectares or equivalent to 8.5 acres. You can see here it's well planted and that the homestead is to the east and really takes up this portion of the property up here. Again, Google Earth does a great job of showing this, sometimes better than our GIS. So again, the east side and well planted. So the applicant provided a site plan. This is an old building up in here. It's actually in quite disrepair. I got a picture of that. There's a little greenhouse here. There's an existing single family dwelling, and we've issued a building permit for an accessory building for farm storage, for farm accessory building, and that's currently under construction. So this is on the driveway facing east. This is the house I was talking about. It looks like an old farmhouse. It's in quite bad disrepair. The applicant hasn't said what they may or may not do with that. They may look to remove it at some point. This is the single family dwelling here. And then just past here, moving this way on the driveway, is the new building under construction. And you can see it's quite sloping terrain as the view of the lake there. You can kind of just see how that dips down there. So the owner purchased the farm in 2019 to farm and now live, and they now live on the farm. I put that in red because in the report, they weren't living on the farm since this has now come to council. They just updated me and saying they're not now living there, but they still work regular jobs off of the farm. The owner found it difficult to find long-term farm help. There we go, get rid of that. The owner found it difficult to find long-term farm help without providing accommodation. The owners applied for a building permit for a farm storage building. That permit was issued on November 19th of 2019. The owners further applied after the building permit was issued for a non-adhering residential use application for farm help on the second floor of the accessory building. And that was done on January 25th of 2020. It was considered complete on February 25th. So the property has eight acres of planted apples. It's a 50-50 Gala and Ambrosia varieties. The applicant requires help from March to November to aid with pruning, thinning, picking, and general maintenance of the farm. The applicant has noted that finding help without providing accommodation to support that help has been a difficult task and does not support long-term employment or training of the farm help. As such, the applicant has requested that a suite be placed within the second floor of an accessory building that has been approved by the district through building permit. The size of that area is 753 square feet. The applicant chose the location of the accessory building, which was previously a chicken coop and workroom, thereby minimizing any impact to the agriculture or existing orchard. Given the situation where the owners work off of the farm, then it seems plausible that to keep the orchard in feasible production, that the applicant requires some help to aid with this. The proposed farm worker accommodation is modest compared to a lot that we've seen come to council, and will be placed inside of the accessory building, minimizing any impact. For these reasons, staff is in support of the application. So the AAC referral, this was taken to the Agriculture Advisory Committee, and the Agriculture Advisory Committee recommended support to council for this proposal. And option A is the staff preferred option, and it is that council also recommends support for non-adhering residential use application for the conversion of the top floor of an accessory building for farm help accommodation. Conversely, option B is that council does not recommend support for this use on the subject property for farm help.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor McKenzie.
I'll move this one.
And Councillor Gamble.
I heard something, first of all, in the discussion that is very confusing to me. What I read there was that you're talking about the chicken coop as being the location for the farm housing.
Where this is located under existing building?
Like the NARU, is that separate from the farm labor being put on the second floor?
So in order to have any farm help as part of the new Agricultural Land Commission legislative changes, to have any farm help on your farm, you now have to get an ARU. So this is very modest in comparison to some of the other proposals. We've seen up to 40 units, 80 units even for some of the larger farms. This is probably for one worker, and
So
yes,
this is.
for this area right here.
Okay, but in your explanation, if you go back a bit, one of the pages there, okay, was it there? I think it was there. It said somewhere, the applicant chose the location of the accessory building, which was previously a chicken coop and workroom. That is not this building that's new. That chicken coop.
It was previously a chicken coop and workroom.
That chicken coop was the big building that's up near the top, near Goldie Road. That looks like it's a mess.
All I can say is that's not what was in the application from the applicant.
Well, that's strange, because that is what I don't understand then. It says, yeah, I find that confusing.
Within the application, they did note that they removed a chicken coop. It is possible, and I
Maybe it
can't
was a
say
little
for
chicken
sure.
coop
Maybe
back
they
there.
had a second chicken coop
Okay.
that it could be possible.
So, I don't have a problem with that small building, for the use intended, providing the bird coop, which is what that long, very, messy type building is, where it's 3 or 4 buildings kind of shoved together. You can only, I don't know, you
This one
can't.
right here.
Yeah, you can just see it there. I'm
says
sure
that's-
it meets absolutely no codes whatsoever, but could we ask that that be removed? Because otherwise you have the potential for potentially three housing units on the farm.
It
I
says
don't-
it's going
I
to be
don't-
demolished. on
This
the
is a
plan.
different, this is a specific application for the ALC, so I don't think we can impose that on, that would have to be a different process altogether.
Paul?
We can't have this is either a recommendation in support or deny support
I see.
to the ALC.
You have a
Okay.
schematic of where the new things are happening. I think it's the last one on my, there.
Yeah, so this one here, they've actually got it here. It says abandoned farmhouse
Yes,
to be demolished in future.
in future.
Yeah, so they are planning on at some point, I mean, it's in disrepair as at the site. I can't see them wanting to bring that up to BC Building Code. It would cost them too much money.
Yes.
So it's very likely, and they've actually noted, they haven't specified when in the future. And
Right.
to Alberto's comments, this is specifically for the NARU.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion?
Yeah, there is a question, Your
Blair
Worship.
votes yes.
Your Worship?
Question,
Yeah?
question?
Oh, I was getting a motion, but yeah, what's the question?
Sorry, can I just ask, Paul, going back to the picture of the very pretty building with the blue and white, that is the one that they're asking for worker accommodation, yeah?
Absolutely, so, yes,
So,
yes.
so it looks like it's already been built, given all of the discussions that we've
That's
had this evening about accessory suites. It looks like it was built as an accessory suite.
To be frank, the applicant in intent from the beginning was that they were going to apply for a building permit. They can use it for a farm storage building, but they had every intent of also applying for a non-adhering residential use application once they had the building permit in.
So is it fitted out already with water and kitchen and bath?
It absolutely is not, because our building inspections team would never allow that to occur.
You're good tonight. Yeah, okay, just wanted to check. Thank you.
Yeah, and so they would have to get another building permit if the Agricultural Land Commission, after this process, were to approve it, which they may or may not. If they were to, then they do have to get another building permit to bring it up to residential standard.
And my final question, I promise, is what is the risk of that being rented out? Because who wouldn't want to spend spring in an orchard in the Okanagan of being rented out as a resident, not as a short-term vacation rental?
Yeah, not to downplay the question through your worship, but it's very difficult for us to know how anyone is using any building. And we do rely on by law enforcement and the residents of Lake Country to inform the district. We, as your Mayor and Council may be aware, we don't, we enforce our bylaws on a complaint-only basis. So if by chance this was to be used inappropriately for whatever reason, and we were to get a formal complaint, we will send our bylaw out there and initiate any proceedings to stop that use.
But equally, they could apply for T1, A1TA zoning, and then that would allow it from tourist accommodation.
That would be a possibility for them potentially.
Yeah.
Councillor Gamble?
That being said, I'm looking at the size of it, and it's under 800 square feet. It's a modest size, and it would adequately meet the needs of seasonal workers, a number of seasonal workers, should they be needed for a short period of time. You know, if they came back and asked for another building, that would be the question. I would still like, if we, support this, I would like to recommend, even though we can't require, I would like to recommend to the Land Commission that, that we ask that, and if those who are over here are listening, which they're not,
No.
I would like to recommend that we ask the Land Commission to consider asking for the removal of the house that is in very bad disrepair. The chicken, well, it was a pigeon house. Housed many pigeons for many years.
So currently, we have a motion on the table. I think we can certainly send a letter to the AAC, sorry, not to the AAC, but to ALC, if council desires to do so. So probably we need an amendment to the motion.
But this is just for the Land Commission to give it a non-farm, but whatever that NERU is called, and has nothing to do with about building anything else, or
It does
how does
indirectly. The way it does is that building was originally a house. People lived in there, and then the new house. In fact, the people who owned it some time ago started their family life in that house. They added onto it bits and pieces and joined it up to their shed, made it longer and longer. And then some years later, they built the big new house that's on the property. The old house is still there. It did house pigeons for probably 30 years, but it is still there. I know because I knew the people who lived there.
Okay. Councillor Scarrow.
Well, I can agree with Councillor Gamble that the old pigeon house is ugly, but that's not what we're talking about today. In my opinion, we're talking about a motion that has nothing to do with that. Now, the property owner who owns that property, in my humble opinion, is not going to live with that degraded thing out in front of his property for very much longer because it's ugly and useless. The fact that he may actually rebuild it into another home would be cost prohibitive. It's just not in any shape to be rebuilt. So I agree, Councillor Gamble, that we would like to see that building removed, but I don't believe it is this district's business to tell the property owner when to do that. I think the fact that it will be removed is a given. No one would want that in their front yard. So I would like to stick with the original motion that Councillor McKenzie made and my second.
Okay, and that is to convert a top floor for farm, of an accessory building for farm accommodation.
Yes, Your Worship.
Yeah, we're just recommending support of the request. The ALC will make the decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
All right. Now are we done? Except for councillor items. Councillor Koza, tell us about sewering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll skip sewer tonight. I had enough of it today.
Any items?
Did you have a taste
I just
test?
want to, yeah, when the kids ask me what the worst job is at the wastewater plant, I always like to say doing the taste test and then watch their reaction. Anyways, off on a tangent. I woke up this morning and it was dreary out, and I was outside checking the garden and the chickens And I looked across the valley and I seen the house fire, and my heart dropped. And then I checked on Facebook later and I seen that no one was injured, just unfortunately 3 kitties passed away. So that was sad for that family, and I hope the best for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we've had, believe it or not, a couple warm days here lately, and our lakes have been rather busy. And I was a little shocked to see a 6-hour wait to get boats out of the lake this last weekend on Kakuli. We get people complaining about our little launch in Oyama once in a while and our unsafe harbor in Okanagan Center. But I've never seen them, either one of them, that bad. But it's definitely headed that way. So I just happened to spend a little time in Kelowna at the launch out at in the Mission there, the El Dorado, and I see they have somebody at the launch directing traffic and collecting, telling you where to pay for your parking and so on. And as much as it's a little managing of it, it seemed to actually work quite well. So I would hate to see what I heard happened out in Kakuli happen in our neck of the woods. And yet I still see it every time I go down to the launch, somebody cursing somebody or somebody swearing at somebody with somebody's kids sitting there, and the odd fisticuff. So I would like to see us head to the direction of having somebody down at the launches eventually. And I know we have some people that have done excellent work down there, and I know we've had mixed opinions on what might work, but I think a couple students might be good. I don't know if they can put up with some grumpy old guys waiting in line, but I think it is something there that we should talk about because I do see that only becoming a worse problem as the weather's getting warmer, and the nicer we make this place, the more people are going to come. So I just wanted to mention that because I can see that's coming to our backyard soon. And the only other thing that I see is because I spend a lot of time on the rail trail and along the beaches and stuff, I see there's a lot of people that don't realize that you should be packing out what you pack in, and they leave a lot of garbage around. And I also notice a lot of the garbage that gets left is recyclables, because people think they're doing a favor by leaving recyclables on the ground rather than in the garbage. So, you know, while it would be nice to have recycle bins, we also know that there's a little bit of an issue with garbage getting dumped into them as well. So, but I do think it's probably something that we should talk about more at a strat session, just to go over that, what might be better, because otherwise the unsightly garbage all over the ground and our little trash pandas packing it around make for a big mess in a hurry. So raccoons. And on that, I just think that those would be two things that we should talk about at some point.
Sounds good. Thank you. Councillor Ireland.
Sorry, I have to stop laughing. Yeah, it was a pretty busy weekend, and I mean, fortunately, our boat launches have been designed with flow, so they're a little bit better off than Kakuli. Kakuli's got no flow, so. But that's something to keep in mind, because the unsafe harbor could work about 100 times better if the regional district actually did something and actually looked at it. I mean, they put a little bit of a floater. All they had to do was put in one more section of floating wharf that's a courtesy dock that would make it infinitely faster. But, you know, it is fun to go down there and watch people beat each other up and people throw things at each other. And however, I have a notice of motion in that we read a letter to the province to support the city of Vernon and the Vernon Chamber of Commerce in their push to push the province into purchasing. There's a 234 acres that's next door to Allison Provincial Park up in Vernon. And this is a once in a lifetime chance to buy a large portion of lake that and property that doesn't exist anywhere else. And there won't be another ability to do that. So, you know, in terms of economics, this will be tremendous for the area. It'll be tremendous for us in Lake Country. I mean, it'll be tremendous for our citizens. You know, I know lots of people that go up and use Ellison Park to camp and that sort of thing. But the more opportunity for visitation and tourism just that brings it to our region, the better off everybody is. So I think we should support our cities to the north and write a letter to the province.
Thank you. Do
I
we,
think-
that's a notice of motion?
No, it's actually
A motion now.
a motion now.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a
You
notice.
just need a seconder.
Yeah. Councillor Kozub, second. I think that's something we can all support. And I think, I'm not sure if it has come to the regional board yet because it's fairly new, but I'll certainly raise it as a regional initiative.
Yeah, I think it would be, you know, the more people that get on board, the better.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yes, it's a lot of money. There's no doubt about that. But what you're acquiring for the future, it's like the rail trail.
Yeah.
We could have backed away from that. We thought that was a lot of money, and look what it's brought to our community. And this is another one of those opportunities that it just doesn't exist on the lake anymore. There is no other large property like this that will ever be sold on that lake. Everything else will be private property with houses on it. And this could be too if we don't act.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Oh, well, I don't know how we do this with a notice of motion. Do we call a question or could I speak to it?
It's not a notice of motion, and we're going to make it a motion.
Okay, so the motion's been seconded.
Councillor Aaron
Yeah.
and you.
So all I would like to say to that is that this property also has the quarry, the rock quarry in it, which is a real historical site.
Yeah.
And you in particular would be interested in such a thing, eh? And I think that rather than the tone of support, we should have more, the letter should contain a tone of adamancy, like very, very strong.
Imperative that it be pursued.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we would go about doing that through the chair to Alberto.
I think the motion would be to support and request the province.
Yeah.
Okay, support and request the province. That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Buy it immediately. Councillor Gamble. Oh, yeah, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Good.
So I have a notice of motion as well, and that is that prior to the commencement of each council meeting, council acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Silix Okanagan Nation. I don't know if we need a lot of time to consider that.
I would, I think, like to run it by the Okanagan band first and see what they think of the wording.
Okay, that's
So that
good.
it, yeah, and that was a suggestion that of staff that we, as we collaborate with them and have,
Absolutely.
we have,
Collaborate all the way.
yeah.
Sounds
So-
good. So I have another bit of information,
Okay.
if we're going to bring that back.
Yeah.
And that is, I have heard that, I had a notice of motion recently about asking the regional district to permit the Return It depot here in Lake
Mhm.
Country to have a receptacle for plastic bags, so we don't have to go all the way into town. Apparently, they are working on that, but they need more room, so they need to move. And so they are looking for a larger location in Lake Country. And at the present time, the Save-On,
Save-On has a
yes, and I believe, is it one other, the
IGA?
IDA, I believe.
IGA.
IGA. So I'm not sure exactly where they are, but I will look because I have a bunch of bags, and I'm sure many people do. We need to save those bags and keep them out of our garbage. We don't want them in our oceans, so
right.
let's start making that move. We heard the young'uns talking to us. Let's pay attention to them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Councillor Reid?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of announcements from the Cars Landing area, proof that you can't keep a good community down, COVID-19 or not. I just wanted to thank staff for supporting the Gable Beach North cleanup. We took out over 25 bags of invasive species. It was organized by Kerry Black with Marie Malloy and support from Wendy Monteith, who was our local resident expert on all things invasive and was able to point out, don't touch that, take that. And Sean and the team gave us great support on that. Also thanks to David Woolerton, who is one of our senior members of the community, but still managed to nimbly get up a bank and clear all the invasive species, the tree of heaven around the Cars Landing sign that had grown up on the disturbed bank there. So I think we do need to have a look at how we manage our berms and our developer berms, because they are getting crowded with these species. Ruth Solentich and Steve Petrosian put together a survey, which is still active on the district's website under Let's Talk, on the new Coral Beach Mackie Road Trail, seeking input from the community of Cars Landing. It's a very popular trail that joins a walking loop together, very natural, beautiful, and we're looking to do some work there to improve the safety on that. So thank you for staff for putting that together and encouraging all our community to fill in that survey. It's open till the end of July, and work will start in the fall. And finally, we have free yoga classes going on at Coral Beach Park every Wednesday. First one was today, 8 a.m. Till 9 a.m. For the month of July, run by one of our local residents, Wendy. She's just qualified as a yoga teacher. It's free, it's COVID-19 compliant, social distancing. Bring your yoga mat every Wednesday, 8 a.m.
Wow. All right.
Your worship, I believe you skipped Councillor Scarrow.
Yeah, he was.
No, Jeremy spoke.
Yeah, Jeremy. Yeah.
I could add, sir, that BC Transit, Mr.
Jeremy
Mayor,
was doing the taste test.
I could add that BC Transit has doubled its capacity on the buses now, so now the
Oh.
overload situation isn't as bad as it used to be. We can now carry 30 people on a bus rather than 14.
All right. All right, and with that, good night. And God bless you. And to all the ships at sea.